Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Let Us Head Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Was in Class 1B. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Okay, so that leaves Izuku Midoriya, Nezu said. Aizawa and Vlad sat and pondered it. The kid had scored well, but there was a problem. According to all tests, the kid was quirkless. But then there was that damn sword. The kid called it Seathrek Goru, the dark sword of shadows. He was brilliant and well-trained. His teacher had been listed as a man named Garrett Jax. The kid had been arrested on one count of vigilantism when he was 12, but it had been dismissed by a judge who had a favorable opinion of the child. The former pro-hero umpire had killed the kid's parents, and according to the law, you had to have a quirk to commit the crime of vigilantism. The kid was dismissed on that technicality. The kid had been arrested for the crime 5 times prior, and in every case, he was cleared of the charges. Experts had come in and testified to the child's lack of quirk. Even a police officer who could detect the truth was brought in. The child did not have a quirk, and when questioned about the sword, he only said that an incredibly sad man in an alley had given it to him before he disappeared. He's quirkless and guaranteed to be a problem. We should just put him in general studies and be done with it, Aizawa said. If he has any potential, he may get in via the sports festival. How can you say that when he placed first on the entrance exam? Vlad pressed. The test is biased. And he placed first on hero points, Aizawa shrugged. He is a problem waiting to happen. Then I will take him, Vlad said. He has potential. Did you see how he defended those students when the 0-pointer came in? One of them is already in my class. Good, you take him, then I will take Bondo, Aizawa said. Now, if you will excuse me, I have some sleep. Vlad watched his fellow homeroom teacher leave and shook his head. Izuku Midoriya, I look forward to seeing what you do. Nezu, I noticed that he is living in a soup kitchen. I would like to have him move into the boarding dorms and extend him a scholarship. You have already housed your 2 exchange students and used your scholarships for the year, Nezu said with a sly smile. Can't we just take one from Aizawa? He never uses them anyway. Vlad responded with the same smile. Of course, Vlad, what he doesn't know won't hurt him. I have his acceptance letter if you want to deliver it to him so you can get him moved in immediately. Nezu slid the envelope over. Yes, I would like that. My class will do well this year, especially at the sports festival, Vlad said, taking the envelope as he got up to leave. Izuku was sweeping and mopping the eating area, quietly working, when he heard the bell ring without looking up. Sorry, but lunch doesn't start for another hour. There are some muffins and a few juice boxes to the left. Please take only what you need. Well, I do appreciate the offer. I am not here for the food but to see you, Izuku Midoriya, the strange voice replied. Izuku's head snapped up, but he calmed down as he saw the pro standing in his red and white uniform. Vlad King. As far as I know, he is on the up and up, with a good arrest record and no real complaints on the hero blast, he thought. As far as I know, sir, I was cleared of those charges 4 months ago, Izuku said as he looked at the pro, his head resting on the mop handle. Vlad looked the teen over. He had a good build, no baby fat on his face, noticeable scars on his arms, and even a few could be seen on his neck. Whoever trained this kid needs to be taken out back and have the sit beat out of him. Vlad thought, I am not here for that, I am here for you. On behalf of the UA, we congratulate you on your acceptance to the hero course. You will join Class 1B this fall. I will be your homeroom teacher. We are also offering you a scholarship that includes room and board. A loud clatter erupted from the kitchen as a girl in her 20s came barreling out and wrapped the kid in a huge bear hug. Izuku, did you hear that you got in? I told you so. The girl had long black hair, white tips, pale skin, and fiery pale blue eyes. Yes, Inka, I heard him. He hugged her as it seemed the girl would not let go if he didn't. Paulo, Kira, Riva, Silk, everyone he got in, Izuku got in, she yelled over her shoulder. Soon, the room was filled with more people as they all came in to congratulate the teen. Vlad was happy to see the staff swarm the young man to congratulate him. Inka ran off and then back in with a large gift bag. We all pitched in and got you this. Inka, you guys didn't need to do this. You could have given this to someone that needs it more. Well then, just become a big-time pro, and you can support the kitchen, so we have all we need, Inka said with a smile. Come on, Izuku. We wanted to do this, even Garrett kicked in some money before. You know. Izuku looked down for a moment. Okay, Inka, I will take it. When I become a pro, I promise this place will have all it needs. Vlad King, sir, I am in your care. But before I leave, can I help with the lunch serving? There are some people I want to say goodbye to. That is fine, if it is okay. I would also like to help, Vlad replied, pleased that the boy seemed humble and wanted to see his responsibilities through to the end. Inka smiled and beamed. That would be awesome. The kids would love to see a pro hero. Vlad stepped up and did what they directed him to. He used the opportunity to watch Izuku as he interacted with some of the people whom clearly he had a relationship with. He saw the young man's eyes water when a group of small children gave him a small keychain and a candy bar. Vlad knew that these children had scrimped and saved to give this small gift, and that Izuku knew that. An older woman gave him a hand-knitted green scarf. It touched Vlad how he seemed to have formed a relationship with all these people across different ages. There was no sense of quirk discrimination. Vlad made a note about donating to this place and volunteering if he could. The kids seemed to get a huge amount of joy seeing him and taking pictures with them. Izuku took pictures with some people and the kids before taking a bunch with the staff. Vlad watched as Inka leaned her forehead to his. She whispered something to him. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is a little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn my inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. She then handed him a nondescript black box with an opening on one side. If you ever question, take the test, and you will receive the answer. Izuku nodded and took the box. The girl hugged him tightly. I know you will make us proud, Izuku, she said as Izuku walked towards Vlad with a few duffel bags and that huge black sword across his back. I am ready, sir, he said with a tenor of determination. The neighbors. Izuku arrived in the UA and was taken to the security office to receive his student ID. He was informed that it would be his pass to access the building on campus, get past the gates, and access his room. He was shown to his room. He turned and saw Vlad hand him an envelope. Here is your bank card. Use it to get groceries, school supplies, and casual clothing. The paperwork will detail the rules you must follow for your scholarship and the cash distribution. If you can maintain higher marks in class, the reward is higher. Keep that in mind. You have 1 month before class starts. If you are so inclined, there is online course material to access on that laptop. The laptop is the property of the UA, so its usage is monitored. I look forward to seeing you in class, Mr. Midoriya. With that, he turned and left. Izuku looked around before setting to unpack. It wasn't much, but he cherished what it was. He smiled as he pulled a photo. It was of a man and woman with green hair like him standing next to a man dressed in all black with a sword across his back. The man was medium height with a slim muscular build and dark tan skin with light hair. The couple was smiling, holding a newborn baby in their arms. Mom, Dad, Garrett, I made it in. I won't let you down. Izuku wasn't alone in the dorms as there were other students. None were on his floor or first years, so the conversations were more in passing than anything. With nothing else to do, he continued his training that had begun when he was 6. He looked over the course materials. One day, when he returned from a workout, he saw boxes in front of a few other doors. He was greeted rather enthusiastically by a blonde girl with blue eyes and 2 horns coming from her head. She was dressed in a pair of short blue denim jeans and a white tank top that showed off her incredible abs. She smiled and said, "Hello, Pony is name. I look forward to running with you." Her Japanese was broken, but Izuku smiled. "Hello, Pony. My name is Izuku Midoriya," he responded in English. "Oh, thank God someone speaks English. I was so nervous about being unable to talk to anyone. I know we just met, but would you mind helping me with my Japanese, please?" The girl pleaded, her large eyes pleading with him, and her tail hung lifelessly. Izuku sighed. He couldn't say no when someone was asking for help, especially when it was something with which he could help. "Yes, I will help you, Pony. Just knock on my door after you unpack, and we can set up a time," he said, the girl's mood immediately picking up along with her boy language. Thank you so much," she said before stepping back, grabbing another box, and heading into her room. "That is nice of you," Izuku heard a male voice say behind him. He noticed a bit of an accent there. Izuku turned and saw the teen standing behind him carrying a box. Izuku stepped out of the way so he could go by. "Sorry for blocking your way." "No worries." The teen walked and set the box down before returning and extending his hand. "Huryu Rin, it is nice to meet you." He had lightly tanned skin and black hair that fell to his shoulders in a low braid. His reptilian-shaped eyes have notably small irises. Izuku Midoriya. The two gave each other a firm handshake, and they both smiled. "What class are you in?" 1B, you. Huryu said. "Same. Maybe we can work out sometime after I get moved in," Huryu suggested. It would be a good way to get to know his new classmate. "Sounds good to me." Izuku bowed and stepped into the room. Over the next 2 weeks, he got to know his dorm mates, especially after discovering that Pony was also in their class. For Izuku, it was different. He had never really interacted with people his age. A few were at the soup kitchen, but it was not like Izuku had a normal school life. He had done online schooling, so true interaction with classmates was severely lacking. His last interaction was with Kachin at the river, which was terrible. It was highly unlikely that it would have gotten any better as he was still quirkless. But he didn't care anymore. Garrett had trained him into an inch of his life, but this conversation was not one he was looking to. Pony had just finished telling them about her horn quirk, and Huryu had told them about his scales quirk, and now they were looking to Izuku. He took a deep breath before he answered, "Fear is the mind killer. I am quirkless." He said it was a simple three-word statement, but the weight it carried. They both looked at him with shock before Pony spoke. "You are quirkless," she said. There was a shock in her voice. Yes, he noticed the tone in her voice, but it was something he was used to. "And you still took the entrance exam?" "Yes." "And you placed first?" "Yes." He braced internally. This was where the next words would determine his relationship with them in the future. He didn't even know it then, but part feared it would go south, as he had enjoyed their interactions. "That is amazing." She yelled, dived, and hugged him. Izuku flushed as she was in her normal mode of dress, which was not much, especially by Japanese standards, but perfectly acceptable by American ones. "Izuku Midoriya, I bow to you, sir," which is astounding on levels that boggle my mind, Huryu added. "It doesn't bother either of you?" he said, puzzled. Pony returned from the hug and looked at him dead in his eyes. "Does it bother you that I have a horse mutation or am American?" "No, you have no control over that," he responded. "Exactly," Huryu and Pony both said. "And if it bothers anyone else in our class, I will be sure to kick them right in the head," Pony said as she moved back to her chair. "Same, you are an inspiration. Without a quirk, you have not only placed first in the entrance exam for the best hero school in Japan, but you are also here on scholarship. If that isn't motivation for people to get on your level and to not underestimate anyone, I honestly don't know what else someone needs," Huryu said, his face full of conviction. "But if you are quirkless, then what about that?" Pony pointed to the sword in the corner. "I know you may not believe me, but I came across this old man with a metal mask in an alley. I had seen him around and would bring him food now and then. But one night, when I checked on him, he pulled that thing out and handed it to me. 'This is yours now,' and he laid down and disappeared into the shadows. He walked over to his desk and pulled out some papers. See, it is even registered as a support item." His two classmates looked over the paperwork. "That is an incredible story, but I believe you, Izuku. Why would you lie about being quirkless to only have a quirk you are hiding? The discrimination you would have suffered would not be worth the lie." Huryu said. "I agree, I get odd looks for my quirk." Pony said. "Thank you both. Now I hope the others in our class will agree to be as great as you two are," he said as dreams of a better tomorrow danced back in his mind. Day 1. The 3 dorm students easily made their way across campus, having located their classes in the days leading up to today. As they walked in, noticing the absence of a seating chart, Izuku and Pony took seats near the window, with Huryu taking a seat next to Pony. They watched as their classmates filled the room. Greetings were exchanged as people took to find their seats. It was then that a girl with short pale gray hair and blue eyes entered. When her gaze fell on Izuku, she immediately walked over to the surprise of the girl with orange hair and a side ponytail and the girl with green hair and long, pointed teeth. "It is you. I had hoped that fate would seem to have us cross paths again," she said with a hint of joy. Izuku looked at her for a moment before recognition set in. "I remember you from the exam. I am glad to see you again. I am happy that you passed. Is this seat taken?" She pointed to the one next to him. "No, please sit." He smiled at the girl. "Good, I will sit here then. Rieko Yanagi, I am pleased to finally meet you formally," she said with a bow. He stood up to return her bow. "Izuku Midoriya, but you can just call me Izuku, if that's okay with you." He rubbed the back of his head, a small blush on his cheeks. "Rieko then," she replied. He smiled before moving to Huryu and Pony. "These are my friends Huryu and Pony." Riko bowed to both as the 2 other girls walked up to stand next to her. "These are my companions, Itsuka Kendo." The girl with orange hair stepped forward, extending her hand and greeting them all. "And this is Setsuna Takage. I must forewarn you, she is a player of pranks." The girl with green hair stepped up with a large smile. "Rei, how can you say I will have to work harder now?" "Nice to meet you all, please call me Set." Izuku had a large smile. It was too good to be true. It was going well. But of course, he knew at some point soon the real test would be when he told the class that he was quirkless. A blonde-haired teen offered his hand to the group as Kendo took a seat behind Rei, and Set sat behind Izuku. "Greetings all, Nito Monoma is my name. I am pleased to meet you all." He shook the other hands and smiled brightly as he did. Then he shook Midoriya's hand, and his face changed. It morphed into a look of disgust. "This must be wrong. There is no way that a quirkless made it to UA." The gasp was audible as the other students turned to look at Izuku. Izuku sighed and stood up to face Monoma in the eye. Pony and Huryu looked ready to stand up and fight. He looked around at the class. "Yes, I am quirkless. I made it into UA." He looked Monoma in the eye. "I even managed the top score in the entrance exam." Monoma stepped back. "That is not possible." The class erupted with students saying all kinds of things, from disbelief to one student shouting manly. Izuku felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Itsuka looking at him. "Really?" "Yes, every part of it, he replied, making sure to keep his voice even and clear. How do we know if you are lying or not? Monoma said. Because he isn't, a booming voice said, silencing everyone. The class turned and saw Vlad King enter the room. Everyone takes their seat. Everyone who was standing sat and turned their attention to their teacher. I was going to bring this up later. Mr. Midoriya is quirkless. The staff is aware and has read the medical reports. Also, Mr. Midoriya scored the highest in the entrance exam. I chose Mr. Midoriya to be a part of this class due to the potential that he displayed during the exam and for another reason. Can anyone tell me what that is? Izuku raised her hand. Ms. Kendo. To show us that even though the rest of us have quirks, we cannot rely on that alone. That anyone who is dedicated and has the heart can be a hero. Correct, he said, placing his hand on the podium. All of you are aware of quirk discrimination. People are judged by their quirks and strength. Mr. Monoma, what is your quirk? Copy, sir, he said confidently. How often have you been told your quirk was villainous or useless? More than I care to admit, his confidence faltering. Ms. Kendo, same question. Big fist and all the time, she said, a small crack in her voice. Mr. Fukadashi, comic, and I was constantly teased. The boy with a speech bubble for a head replied. Mr. Kamakiri, how often have you faced discrimination for your quirk? Nearly every day. He was tall with a praying mantis quirk. He had gotten worse and said to him that just a simple thing like his quirk was useless. Ms. Takage, you join us via recommendation. What about you? My quirk allows me to detach body parts. The kids would take parts of me and lock them away, Set said, leaning forward. I am sure that we can continue this and go through all of you. All of you have had to deal with being judged for something you had no control over. No one here got to choose their quirk or how it would manifest. Just like no one chooses to be born quirkless and deal with an even higher level of discrimination than all of you. You are all here because you decided for yourselves that you would be a hero. He scanned over the faces of his class before continuing. You did all you could to join the UA and train to become a hero, to take on the most dangerous job in the country, where if you are lucky if you get to retire. Look at everyone here. According to the statistics, even if you all graduate, over half of you will not be able to attend a 10-year reunion. I am not telling you all this to scare you. I am sure you all know what you have signed up for. If that isn't true, there is no shame in transferring to another course. Vlad was pleased that none of them were surprised by this news. My job is to do everything I can to prepare you for the future. Because believe me, I want nothing more than to see all of you at your 10-year reunion. Everyone here wants to be the next number one, but the first step is to become a hero. Look to each other for inspiration. Look to each other for help. For the next 3 years, you all will be together. Don't let petty ideas of what a hero should be get in the way of you becoming a hero in the first place. Because we are here at UA, and we go beyond. Plus, ultra. The class shouted. Now, everyone follows me. We have an orientation to attend to. 1B filled out the room. As Izuku was heading to the door, he felt a hand on his shoulder, a gentle touch, hesitant. Izuku turned and saw it was Nito. I just wanted to apologize. It was stupid of me to try and put you down for being quirkless. I want to start over. Everything Vlad-sensei was right. I know what it is like to have people be a-holes because of my quirk. I can only imagine what you must have gone through. I was repeating the cycle, Naito said with his head bowed. I would have given up on being a hero if I were you. He was ashamed of that truth. Okay, Izuku said. Just like that, Nito said in surprise. If you are lying, I will not accept a second apology. If you tell the truth, I have someone to hang out and train with. Everyone gets a second chance. They left the room to see Pony. Huryu, Itsuka, Setsuna, and Ryuko standing there. Everything good? Itsuka asked, looking past Izuku to Nito. Izuku nodded as Nito quickly stepped forward. I was an ass, please forgive me. You were an ass, but as long as you realize and I am cool, Setsuna said. The rest nodded at the sentiment and followed off after the rest of their class. Itsuka fell into step next to Nito. You did a fast 180. Nito sighed. It was what Sensei said. It reminded me of when I was growing up. Unless I can touch someone and copy their quirk, I am effectively quirkless. When I realized that not only was Midoriya quirkless, but he had made it and it angered me. Not because he was quirkless, but because I know I would have given up on being a hero if I were him. He worked harder than me and was more determined. It made me pity myself and overreact. After Sensei's speech, I felt like a total jackass, and it was either double down and make a lot of the class hate me or own it and see if I can fix it. Itsuka was surprised at the amount of self-reflection that Nito had expressed. Well then, Monoma, I forgive you as well. Just don't make me look foolish. I will do my best, Kendo. Class 1B sat through orientation and was dispatched to their guidance counselors. They were surprised to see that a class was missing and that it was their sister, Class 1A. After they made their way back to class, they saw gym uniforms sitting on their desks, and Vlad ordered them to get changed and make their way to the athletic field for a quirk assessment. Boys' locker room. After placing his belongings on the shelf, Izuku stood in front of his locker. He began to shrug off his uniform. It was when they had removed his shirt that a commotion broke out. Midoriya. What happened to you? Naito shouted. The rest of the class and their yelling could be heard in the girls' locker room. It is causing them to pause and listen. All the boys were looking at Midoriya then. And his upper body was covered in scars, different sizes and lengths, down his arms and some even on his neck. His shoulder and back had burn marks. Then, when Midoriya didn't pause getting undressed when his pants were removed, they were just as bad. Midoriya stopped and looked down at his body, then shrugged. Most of them are from training, some are from fights. About as manly as F. Tetsu said. Well, at least he isn't a pansy, Toguro added under his breath. Huryu, next to Izuku. Is that why you always wear those compression shirts? No, I just like them, he responded as he started to put on his gym uniform. Dude, I don't know what world you are from, but here we don't call that training, that is effing abuse. A boy with black hair and eyes wearing a headband said. Oasis is right. Another one of his class chimed in, with dark brown hair and black eyes. We should let Vlad-sensei know so charges can be filled. That would be hard to do, he is dead. Izuku said, zipping up his uniform. I understand your concerns, but we should hurry to the athletic field. Sensei is waiting. He closed his locker and walked out. Sen just sat there dumbfounded. Does he understand that is abuse? Who the hell cares? Toguro said, carefully slipping his head into his uniform to not tear it on his mantis quirk. If he is over, then you all should be too. Athletic field. Unfortunately, Izuku, who had hoped that the commotion would die down, only got worse when the girls came onto the field. The UA athletic uniforms were shorts and short-sleeved with an open collar. All the scars on his arms and legs were displayed. He was nearly assaulted by Pony, who, when she saw the scars, started crying and then hugged him fiercely, promising vengeance on who had hurt him. It drew the attention of Set, Itsuka, and Ryuko, then everyone else. Vlad then came over and, looking at Izuku, told him they would address this after the assessment test. The test soon commenced, and Izuku performed fine. He managed to land in the middle of the pack on every test except the sit-up and seated toe touch, where he placed near the top. He would see Pony and Huryu talking and then stop when he walked up. It was happening a lot. In the end, Setsuna topped the charts, and as they were dismissed, Izuku was told to change and meet Vlad in the nurse's office. Izuku was confused. He even stopped his group before they left the field. Did I do something wrong? I was mostly homeschooled, so would you let me know if I did? I was hoping we could all be friends. They all stopped. It was Riko who stepped forward and hugged him quickly before stepping back. You have done nothing wrong, mighty warrior. You simply bear marks that have startled us as we shudder to think what things have done this to you. You are Pony's friend, and I do not like that someone has hurt my friend like this, Pony said, her large blue eyes wet with tears. Huryu stepped forward. Izuku, who did this to you? Izuku stopped and looked at his arm. He pointed at a long scar down his forearm. Sensei Jax. He then proceeded to look at every scar on his arm and say mostly the same thing. Sensei Jax. He then pointed to on his elbow, umpire, or someone else's names. Huryu stopped him, and the girls were horrified. Izuku, can you say that you can tell me where every scar on you came from? Huryu said, his voice wavering. Yes, I can tell you where they came from, what mistake was made that caused them, and how to not let it happen again. Izuku's tone when he responded bothered them even more. It was a calm, matter-of-fact tone that he had. Itsuka pointed at a thin scar around his neck. That one, Sensei Jax. Garrot, protect your neck at all times, especially when entering an unknown room. Neck guard, or keep your blade up. Itsuka's eyes watered. You should hurry and go meet with Sensei. Izuku stopped and went jogging off, but he turned to the group. Are we still friends? Of course, now hurry, you don't want to be late, Itsuka said. Izuku flashed them a blinding smile, and they watched the pure joy spread across his face as he jogged off. Once he was gone, Pony and Ryuko started crying. Itsuka looked at Huryu with murderous intent in her eyes. Tell me you know who this Sensei Jax is and where I can find him. Izuku said he was dead, but it almost sounded like there was a hint of sorrow. The group walked down the tunnel in silence. Infirmary. Izuku walked into the infirmary to see Vlad, Recovery Girl, Hound Dog, and Midnight waiting for him. Izuku stopped at the door before stepping in and bowing to his teacher. I am here, sir, he said, coming to an almost military rest position. Well, thank you for arriving promptly. Will you please strip down to your undergarments and take a seat on the bed? Vlad said, having noticed the way he came to a rest. Izuku started removing his clothes as he walked towards the bed with little care about the assembled group. Midoriya, would you like some privacy? Midnight said with a curious look. Izuku looked at her and said, why? And what if we had asked you to strip completely? Midnight pressed, with no sense of shame or modesty. Do you need me to? Izuku responded. He could hear a low growl from Hound Dog. Midnight looked sad in her eyes. No, Izuku, that's okay. As the faculty got a good look at the boy's body, their anger levels began to rise. Then he was standing there in his underwear and Midnight had to excuse herself for a moment. Recovery Girl told him to lie down as she began to go over every part of him. How many times have you had a broken bone? 26. Cold simple responses. It bothered the faculty assembled. Who repaired the damage? She kept her questions direct and her tone clinical so she did not betray her anger. The Black Priest. When was the last time you saw him? Last year when my sensei died. Do you miss your sensei? She asked. Very much, Izuku answered. He couldn't see Hound Dog stiffen. Did your sensei give you all these scars? Most but not all. And we called them lessons. A lesson etched on my flesh lest I forget. Recovery Girl had to step away at that moment. Midnight, who had entered the room in time to hear the last comment, followed her. Vlad walked over to Izuku and took in all the scars on the boy. Why did your sensei teach you lessons this way? Vlad asked, his mind boggled at the amount of scars he was seeing. Because I'm quirkless, and society looks down on those with lesser quirks or those seen as criminal. If I choose to walk the path of a hero, I need to be ready for society to forsake me. The only thing that will not forsake me is my skill. In the end, which will be all I have, Izuku said, looking his teacher in the eyes. His voice was no longer cold but sincere, full of truth that told them how he saw things. Vlad just looked at the boy. There were truths in his words, but for them to have been carved into the flesh of one so young. How did your sensei die? The sound of sadness creeping into his voice bothered Vlad and Hound Dog. He was sick. The Black Priest took him away. Why do you miss him? Hound Dog asked. When my mother and father died, he took me in and gave me what I needed to be a hero. For a long time, no one believed in me. My mother and father told me to do something else to find a new dream. I wouldn't be here without him. Izuku said, that same tone of mourning. How do you know that? Couldn't you have trained on your own? Hound Dog countered. Izuku looked the man dead in his eyes. Tell me of another quirkless hero, or tell me about the hero with the super minor quirk who came from an orphanage or the street to become a hero. This is UA. No person in my class or one made it here on luck or without some useful quirk. Even if they have a minor quirk, they must have someone train them. You cannot be stupid to tell me that people would be lining up to train a quirkless kid. There was no more sadness in his voice as they could hear the anger rising with every word he spoke. Most quirkless are dead by the age of 16. Those who do manage to live past that are 75% more likely to be a victim of violent crime. Of those, 80% go unsolved. For those that manage to live, the only hope is being married to another quirkless person and living in towns in the middle of nowhere. The only thing a quirkless person in this country is good for is effing and dying. The anger was turning to rage as it spread to his eyes. Quirkless make up more than half the sex industry. Did you know that a bill was put before the Diet to allow the forced sterilization of quirkless people? I am doing this to show them that the quirkless of this country can be more than a body or a convenient whole. That we are people that should be treated with respect. Oh, by the way, how many quirkless people does this school employ? No offense to you, Mr. Hound Dog. Why do they have you here as a therapist? Does your quirk do anything to help with your occupation? Can you tell me that no quirkless therapist is not as qualified as you? That there isn't a quirkless person that could be a janitor? You are here because you have a quirk, and you qualify. That is rather insulting, Hound Dog said. That is true, but it doesn't make it any less true. The boy fired back. Ask the principal. Ask him when you applied if there was a quirkless applicant who applied with you, and ask him why he chose you over her. Vlad opened his eyes wide at that statement, as did Hound Dog. Why would you make that claim? Ando Natsumi graduated with a higher GPA, scored higher in every statistical category, and had 6 years more experience, specializing in quirk counseling, grief counseling, and childhood development. You even cited one of her studies in your dissertation for your doctorate. Ando Natsumi quirkless, Hound Dog not quirkless, Izuku said, his voice full of anger. He looked at Vlad, the lady who gave me the green scarf. Despite all that, the only job she can get is at the local quirkless clinic. She eats at a soup kitchen. Izuku wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. You can tell me that the reason for my scars is terrible, that they are evil, that it is many things, but they are the length that I will go through to make sure our voice is heard. Your entrance exam is biased. All it took was a quirkless kid with a sword and more determination than anyone else to get a win. All flash, no substance. He looked at Vlad. Why am I not in 1A? Every year, the top scorer in the entrance exam is placed in 1A. He didn't want you in his class. Did he recommend the General Studies Sports Festival route? He did. But you wanted me. You wanted me for all the reasons you said this morning. You want me to inspire the rest of them to go beyond. You want to see what I can do. His voice was rich with emotion bordering between anger and anguish. That is correct, Vlad said, his voice strong and sure. Can I get dressed yet? Izuku called out. Over the intercom came a recovery girl's voice. Yes. Izuku sat up and looked at Vlad. Is there anything else, sensei? I want you to take therapy sessions, Vlad said. Not with him, Izuku pointed at Hound Dog. I would rather talk to Ms. Midnight. Vlad looked at the boy intensely, looking him over. Did I make a mistake in bringing him in? There is so much anger inside him. I am sure that can be arranged. But I have one more question. Do you think there was a way to learn without the scars? I am sure there is, but not anyone would invest in a quirkless. After I graduate, maybe. Hopefully, the next little one who is born quirkless and wants to be a hero with a minor quirk or a villainous quirk can look at me and say that they can do it. A hero once said, "It doesn't matter what your quirk is, you desire to do good that will dictate whether or not you can be a hero." Do you know who said that? Vlad looked deep into those fierce emerald's eyes. I did. The only hero with a blood quirk to ever crack the top 50, Izuku said. He dressed and headed for the door before he stopped and looked at Hound Dog. You are a great therapist and have done an amazing job. Good night. Izuku left, heading across campus to his room. Dorms. When Izuku made his way up the stairs, he saw Pony and Huryu sitting outside his door with food and some drinks. Pony smiled as he walked up. Huryu held up the food and drinks. Hungry? Izuku nodded his head. He opened the door and the trio walked in. Izuku set his belongings down. Then Pony barreled into him and hugged him. Izuku, why are you hurt so bad? Look, man, if you don't want to talk about it, then we understand, but we are your friends, and when we see those marks, it worries us. The girls were also worried. If they didn't have to catch the train, they would be sitting here waiting as well. Izuku, who hugged Pony back, offered her a smile as she stepped back, and they sat down on the floor to eat. After they finished, Izuku slipped off his uniform top and draped it over the back of his desk chair. Sitting there shirtless, he took a deep breath. I know this may be hard to hear, but I don't regret these lessons upon my body. I know that people may be uncomfortable because of them, but I look at them as proof of my struggle. I know that I will get more of them and look at each new one the same way. I am a quirkless teen in the hero course in the UA. He paused. I am not looking to become the #1 hero. I would be impressed if I ever broke 100. I need to graduate from this place and show people that anyone can be a hero if they are willing to put in the work and sacrifice. Please don't cry for me, Pony. I don't want any of you to cry for me. He took Pony's hand and squeezed it once. I want you to smile at me and laugh with me. And if you want to help me, then don't treat me any differently than you would any other hero student. Put your faith in me to have your back, and I will do the same for you. Izuku looked down at his hands. All I ever wanted besides to be a hero was to be treated like everyone else. To be treated as an equal and not as a lesser than. Huryu extended his fist towards Izuku. Okay, Izuku, I will do that. Together with everyone else, we will graduate from this place. You have my back, and I will have yours. Pony smiled at him. I can smile for you, I promise. You protect Pony, and Pony protects you. After that, Izuku slipped on a long-sleeve compression shirt, and the trio talked to Izuku about movies, shows, music, and everything normal teenagers spoke about. Pony decided to share her love of American movies as they watched it on the laptop. Izuku smiled as his two friends fell asleep as the movie played. It was his first sleepover, and ignoring the fact that it was an impromptu one, he still decided to count it. Pony and Huryu awoke in the middle of the night covered in individual blankets. They looked and found Izuku asleep, sitting on his bed, his head hanging to the side. Pony gently laid him on his side and covered him up. Izuku smiled in his sleep, and she could hear him say her name lightly. It caused the American to blush as they quietly left the room to head to their beds. The next day, Izuku had woken early. After meeting up with his two doormates, they made their way across campus to eat in the cafeteria. They were sitting eating breakfast when a girl with purple hair and earphone jacks hanging from her ears came walking over with a tray of food. Hey, I know you, she said as the trio looked up at her. She was pointing at her with her jacks. You helped me out at the exam. Can I sit? Izuku stood up and motioned her to sit. Yes, I remember you as well. It was cool how you jammed your jacks into that robot and broke it. Izuku Midoriya. These are my friends Pony Tsunotori and Huryu Rin. The girl gave the trio a bow before she sat down. Kyoko Gyro, it is nice to meet you all. What class are you in, Midoriya? 1B. You? 1A. That's nice. Hey, is your teacher any good? Ours is mean. We seem to be bothering him just by being here. He expelled the kid who came in last in our quirk exam and threatened a few of us that we would take the same tests again in 2 weeks, and if we didn't show vast improvement, we were next. That doesn't seem very fair. We did those tests yesterday, too. Our teacher told us not to become complacent and to work harder. For those that scored lower, he was going to send some diet and exercise plans so they can improve. Huryu said, Dude, it sucks. I know we are here to be heroes, but coming in on day 1, saying to get better, and not offering support is wrong. That's why I am here so early to get some exercise in. Izuku looked at Gyro and smiled at her. If you like, I can work out with you. Maybe show you some things you can do to improve your scores. Kyoka's eyes widened. You would do that? Thank you, but I am not even in your class. It doesn't matter when we graduate. We are going to have to work together at some point. Or are we going to be like, no, I can only work with people I went to class with, he said with a smile. Kyoka laughed. Yes, then, Midoriya, I will take all the help I can get. I don't want to get expelled. Kyoka was also surprised when the other two volunteered to work out with them. They all agreed to meet the next morning at 5 a.m. at one of the student gyms on campus. -1A. Kyoka walked over to Toru, Shiro, and Denki. Hey, guys, I found someone willing to help me work out in the mornings if you want to join. Toru immediately agreed while the boys gave half-hearted commitments. Who the hell is willing to help us? Denki asked. You remember me telling you about the guy I met at the entrance exam? I was hoping he got in. And he did. He is just in 1B, Kyoka said. Yeah, no way I am trusting that I'm out, Denki said. Shiro echoed Denki's sentiment. Are you rejecting this just because they are from a different class? The boys nodded. She looked at Toru. Toru sighed. If you trust him, I will give him a chance. What time tomorrow? Kyoka smiled. -1B. The class quieted to a murmur when Izuku's group walked in. Izuku walked to the front of the class, looking down at his watch. He had a few minutes. Everybody, can I say something? He watched as the class quieted down. I know some of you are upset about what you all saw yesterday. I just want to address this so we can get it over and done with. He rolled up his sleeves, showing his scared arm. I don't regret any of these. Each proves how hard I am willing to work to be a hero. I am sure I will get more before that happens. All I want is for all of you to treat me like one of you. Trust me to watch your backs as I trust you to watch mine. I know they are ugly, and I apologize if they disturb you. But know that I will gladly get a new one if it means one of you is safe. Tagaru clicked his tongue. You won't need to worry about that for me, jackass. Now sit down. Nito stood up. I hope it never comes to that, Midoriya, but I will also take one for you. Me too. Then I could look at all the time and remember that manly moment I saved you, Tetsu said. It would be a badge of honor I would bear upon my body not just for Midoriya but for any of you, Ibara said as she stood. Kinko jumped up, and her quiet voice, me too. Soon, the class was declaring that they would all defend each other. Izuku smiled as he made his way to his seat. Vlad stood outside listening to his class declare to protect each other and smile. This year was interesting. He had hoped they would gel together but never expected it so soon. And he would have never thought it would be sparked by the quirkless hero from 1B. Anyone who expected that the second day in the UA to be action-packed was wrong, well at least until lunch came around, but more on that later. The morning for 1B was very normal. After homeroom it was all normal class stuff, math, Japanese literature, and English. The only difference for most everyone was that pro heroes taught it. For Izuku it was the fact that not only was it taught by pro heroes that there was no pause or skip buttons. He had spent most of his schooling online with recorded classes to do those things. He focused on the few parts on which he was unclear. Between his self-study and in-cause tutoring, he was well ahead on the material. It also helped that he had spent the time he had due to arriving early at the dorms going over the syllabus. Instead, he pulled out one of his journals and decided to work on his hero notes for the class. He was in the middle of working on his sketch of Riko when the bell rang for lunch. He brought his attention back to the world around him. He saw Satsuna giving him the side eye. You were not even paying attention, were you? She said as he got up. Honestly, no. I paid attention to the parts that I needed a little clarity on. Oh, Mr. Smarty Pants, care to make a wager? Izuku smirked, his eyes lit up with a hint of mischief. What do you have in mind, madam? Be careful, Izuku, she got in on recommendation, Naito said. Satsuna placed her hand on her hips and gave Izuku a teasing smile. I bet that I score higher than you on our first exams. And when you fail, he said, matching her smile, then I have to honor one request from you. And when I win, you have to do the same. I think I can take that bet. Oh, you are so going down, my green-haired compatriot. Anyone else want in this action? She said with a Cheshire grin. To Satsuna's dismay, none of the other classmates wanted to join in. Come on, Itsuka, you can get your winnings back. No thank you, Set. I learned my lesson from last time, Itsuka said, not making eye contact with Set. What's that make you do? Pony asked. Itsuka blushed and started to walk out of the room. Nope, not talking about it. Of course, this was all anyone wanted to talk about then. Mayhem ensues. Izuku sat at the lunch table joined by Pony, Rei, Set, Itsuka, Huryu, and Nito. The group began to eat and were chatting when Pony looked past Izuku's shoulder. Izuku turned and saw Kyoka there with a pair of floating clothes next to her. Hey Izuku, sorry to interrupt your lunch, but I wanted to introduce my friend Toru. She was going to join us for the morning workouts, but I wanted to ask if you would be willing to do some after school as well. Sure, Kyoka, I can do that. I live in the campus dorms, so I don't have to catch a train. How about we meet at the gym near there? Sounds good, we will meet you there, Kyoka said with a smile. Thank you for taking the time to help us, Midoriya. We appreciate it, Toru added. We are all going to be pros, why shouldn't we help each other? He replied with a smile. The girls turned and walked away when he turned back to his group except for Pony and Huryu, who had questioning looks. Luckily, Huryu explained what had happened that morning and Izuku's offer. He added that Pony and he were going to join Izuku in the workouts. Izuku looked at the others extending the offer to join them. He stood up to return his lunch tray when he heard an explosion and felt a fist crash into his face. He tumbled to the ground. "What the F are you doing here, you quirkless piece of shit?" His friends jumped up at the sudden attack. Before them was this angry-looking ash blonde with spiky hair and sharp teeth. Ray went to move towards Izuku to check on him, only to get a blast to the chest, sending her toppling back. "Stay the F out of this while I end this piece of shit." Izuku kipped up and swung the metal tray. A loud clunk of it impacting the blonde's head was heard. His attacker stumbled back as Izuku rushed in. The blonde threw a haymaker right, which Izuku ducked under. Grabbing the blonde's wrist, he tossed him over his shoulder, planting him face first. Izuku placed one hand on the blonde's shoulder, the other still holding his attacker's wrist. With a press and twist, a sickening popping sound was heard, and the blonde screamed. His friends froze at the sound, as did most of the cafeteria. The blonde rolled and swung his other arm in a backhand motion, catching Izuku in the side. His attacker was now face up, and he brought his hand up to let loose another explosion. Before he could, Izuku drove his elbow into the boy's nose, breaking it. He quickly pinned his attacker's arm with his knee and started punching the living hell of the boy. As Izuku reared up to drop another elbow, he was speared off the blonde by another boy with red spiky hair. Izuku saw the boy attempt to drop an elbow. He brought his arms up and covered up. He managed to block the attack, but it hurt quite a bit. It was like being hit with a rock. He heard the redhead say something about calming down. He could see him ready for another attack. The irony was lost on this one. The Izuku heard, "Hey, get the F off him, that is not manly, you chicken shit." It was Tetsu who tackled the boy. Izuku was getting to his feet when he saw a pink-haired girl jump on Tetsu's back, yelling something about getting off Ichiro. Itsuka reacted and yanked the girl off. The girl swung wildly at Itsuka. That was a major mistake. Itsuka ducked under the swing and drove a fist into the girl's gut. That was a major mistake. A boy with a tail used it to grab Itsuka from behind and toss her away. Setsuna leaped up and caught her friend. Tail boy never saw Izuku coming with that overhand right. The boy was rocked back, and Izuku got hit in the back of his head by a boy with yellow hair with a black streak. Huryu leaped over the table with a spin kick, crashing into that back-attacking beach. The pink girl got up and fired some sort of gray substance at Izuku. He ducked under, and he heard the hiss of acid as it hit the table. Pony took that personally. Her horns fired off, hitting the pinky in the gut and sending her flying. A frog girl leaped up and caught her. A boy with multiple arms snatched Izuku up and slammed him down. Tagaru smiled and rushed this new attacker. No one attacks his classmates. If anyone is going to kick their ass, it was going to be him. Ray had regained her feet when the frog girl and Pinky came dashing into the fight. Ray pulled the frog girl out of her attack, aimed at Pony, and slammed her into the ground hard, causing her to bounce. Pony took a kick to the gut. Pinky got an enlarged fist to the face. When suddenly a girl with a permanent blush slapped Itsuka in the face, the redhead started to float away. Nobody FS with Set's friend, but her. Blush got punched. As more members of 1A dashed, and so did more members of 1B. A blue-haired boy that was shouting at everyone to stop. His arrow was he roughly grabbed Ray, only for Izuku to deck him square in the face, breaking his glasses. Izuku ate an immensely powerful kick to the midsection that day. Katsuki began to regain consciousness, only for Nito to grab another lunch tray and home run swing it off his face. Momo, Kyoka, and Tori were trying to pull people apart and calm them down. Ibara, Yui, and Manga were as well. Shoto simply sat in the corner eating his soba. Tailboy grabbed Izuku by the arm roughly, and Izuku spun into it, separating his shoulder in the process. Tailboy was stunned by the action, and he paid for it with a knee to the face and a leg sweep. Suddenly a pink mist enveloped the room, and Class 1A and 1B suddenly felt sleepy. The boys were out like a light. Setsuna turned and saw Professor Midnight. "Hey, quit being a D," she managed as she collapsed. Recovery Girl had seen quite a bit in her time in the UA. It had been many years since she had seen an all-out brawl in the cafeteria. Aizawa and Vlad were yelling at each other, blaming the other's class. As their students gained consciousness, Izuku sat up and shook his head. Happily, his arm was already back in its socket. He looked around at someone who had separated them by class. They were still on the cafeteria floor, with Vlad, Mr. Aizawa, and Midnight standing in between them. President Mike and Hound Dog were at the door, and they were surrounded by Ectoplasm and his clones. He noticed Bakugo was missing. The rest of the students were waking up. He went over to check on Ray. She was fine, it seemed, but she was wearing a hooded sweatshirt. When the girl peeked inside the sweatshirt, she simply said that she was going to have to get a new uniform. Vlad immediately asked Itsuka about what happened, and Aizawa was talking to the girl in a spiky black ponytail. Izuku walked over to each member of his class and shook their hands and thanked them for having his back. He even did this to Itsuka in front of Vlad. He looked over at the spiky redhead staring harshly at him. The redhead returned the stare. Vlad stood there and looked at his class. So, the Bakugo from 1A had attacked Izuku with his quirk unprovoked because Izuku was quirkless, and the boy knew that. Izuku beat him down and probably took it too far when the Kirishima attacked Izuku. Tetsu attacked Kirishima, Ashido attacked Tetsu, Itsuka attacked Ashido, and it just spiraled from there. Only 3 from each class had abstained from attacking anyone. So, the vow he heard this morning was put into action. He did his best not to smile. Aizawa was rubbing his nose. He ordered his class back to their homeroom and to stay there until he dismissed them, except for Kirishima. Vlad did the same with 1B holding Izuku back. Vlad looked at Izuku. Do you know what you did to Bakugo? Dislocated his shoulder, broke his nose, maybe a fractured jaw, black eyes. I know I gashed his forehead. I was about to do more when this beach attacked me from behind. Hey, F you man, you didn't have to go that far. Did you not see that bastard attack me and Ray when she just came to check on me? And did you not tackle me and try to elbow me in the head while telling me to calm down? Aizawa gave Kirishima a critical look. Your solution to calm the situation down was to tackle someone and attack them to get them to calm down? And language you too. Izuku muttered a F you to Aizawa. Aizawa heard it and glared at him. Izuku didn't flinch and stared right back. Mr. Midoriya, snapped Vlad. Are you sorry for your actions? No sir, I am not. Bakugo attacked me unprovoked. He used his quirk on a classmate that was simply checking on my condition and said how he was. And I quote, kill this piece of shit. I defended myself. I merely dislocated his arm, I didn't break it. Maybe the final elbow I was attempting might have been a bit much. After that I regret nothing. I was defending my class. It was one of that decided to escalate the situation. Well, if you hadn't provoked Bakugo, Kirishima said. Sorry for breathing. Or did you miss the part when he called me a quirkless piece of shit? You're quirkless. And I still kicked your bro's butt. Enough, Mr. Midoriya, Vlad said. Sorry, sensei. My blood is up. May I return to my class while you review the tapes? You may. Kirishima returned to class for now, Aizawa said. The two boys walked back in silence with Midnight walking behind them. Kirishima glared into the back of Izuku's head as he walked past on his way to 1B. 1A. Ijiro walked back into class to see everyone else sitting at their desks in silence. He noticed that much of the class had bruising. Some had black eyes. If there weren't any broken bones, then Recovery Girl had left them to heal on their own. Ijiro walked over to Mina. Hey, thanks for having my back. I always have your back, Iji, but I may have been a little overzealous. That big fist girl packs a mean punch. Now it was all their fault for taunting Bakugo. Why the F are you standing up for the guy? He calls you city hair. Kyoka asked. And they didn't do anything. That dipshit attacked Midoriya all on his own. Look, he's a little abrasive, but I know he is a good guy. What has he done in the what full day we have been here to make you think that? He laughed when Minda got expelled, and straight said he hopes the rest of us extras get the same treatment. He is one of the strongest in the class. He is just trying to motivate in his way. For reals, dude. Denki said. Well, either way, man F1B. I can't wait to catch them in a rematch. Real brave for someone who hit him in the back of the head, Mizo said. What do you say, octopus arms? You heard me, City Lightning. You want to go? Anytime. We can do it in training or name the place. Hey guys, don't fight, Toru pleaded, jumping up and down. Yes, it is bad enough that we engaged in fisticuffs in the middle of lunch like animals. My temper even got the best of me, Tenya said as he pulled out a spare set of glasses from his bag. Tenya is right, we need to all calm down, Momo said. We should be focusing on getting that a hole from 1B back, Ijiro said. For what? Kyoka exclaimed. Maybe if you kick his ass, Bakugo might remember your name. You know what, F you, Gyro, he replied. No F you, she screamed. Everybody shut up, shouted OCHACO. Everyone turned and looked at her. This is our fault. Bakugo attacked that guy for no reason. And you, Kirishima, who tries to stop a fight by hitting someone and telling them to calm down. They retaliated when kept escalated it. I slapped the redhead for some reason when I was just trying to get her attention. I think we should all just sit down and be quiet because some of us are probably going to get expelled today. She sat down and buried her face in her arms and screamed. Well, why would we get expelled? Denki said. Achako lifted her head with tears pooling in the corner of her eyes. Some of us used our quirks in the fight. Kirishima hardened when he attacked Midoriya. I just floated that red-headed girl. Mina shot her acid at him. What am I going to tell my parents? She just buried her face in her arms again. The rest of the class began to run through the fight in their heads, seeing if they had used their quirks in the brawl themselves. 1B. Izuku walked in, seeing everyone just sitting at their desks talking about the fight. Everyone had quieted down and was looking at him. He stopped at the front of the class and bowed. Thank you, everyone, for having my back. That's what friends do, we kick ass, Pony said with a smile. Who was that douche nozzle anyway? Toguru asked. Language, Ibara said. It drew a chuckle from some of the others. Izuku sighed. My mom and his mom were friends back in the day. We used to play together when he found out I was quirkless and he started bullying me. After my parents died, he just kept at it, till my teacher switched me to homeschooling instead. Truthfully, I thought I might encounter him, but I did not expect that. Izuku made his way to his seat, but he heard Toguru say, well, at least you kicked his ass. Izuku walked over to Ryuko. Hey Ryuko, thank you for trying to check on me. I am sorry you got hurt on my behalf. No thanks are necessary, Izuku. As many others have said, it is what friends do. I know you would take a blow for me as well. Let it considerate repayment for your activities during the entrance exam then. We can do that. He smiled that blinding smile at her before moving to his seat. Noticed a faint blush on Ryuko's cheeks. A mischievous smile grew on the girl's face. Nezu's office. Well, that was an interesting lunch period, Nezu said as he took a sip of his tea. Mr. Bakugo will be released from the medical wing in about an hour after receiving treatment. We need to decide the punishment for all the parties involved. Bakugo should be expelled, Vlad said. He started the incident and attacked 2 students unprovoked with his quirk. The kid isn't the only one in the infirmary, and you want to expel him. What about the student that put him there? Aizawa said. He defended himself. He may have gone a bit far. He should be given detention. I told you at the beginning that he would be trouble. We should just expel him. Bakugo should be put on detention and probation. One more incident, and then he should be demoted to general studies or expelled depending on the severity of the incident. So let me understand this: you are going to bat for a student that attacked other students unprovoked because one of them is quirkless. According to Midoriya's statement, he hadn't seen Bakugo in years, and upon them meeting up he attacked him. Are you the quirkiest, Aizawa, or just dumb? What the hell did you say, Vlad? You heard me. What is your problem with Midoriya? The kid is going to get himself killed, Vlad. Our job is to prepare them to be heroes, do not coddle their dreams. So, you read a file, maybe do a quick assessment, and then that's it, they are done. I am not sure if you are this stupid or just that lazy. How many others are on the block? 5, you sanctimonious piece of shit. I am a realist. It is a logical decision. No, it is not. You are pushing your fears after your friend's death onto your students. You expel them without even trying to teach them. And you justify it by saying you are saving them. You hide behind your stupid logical ruses and do nothing to improve them. Have you done anything to help the other 5 on the chopping block? Who in general studies have you already handpicked because they caught your eye? Don't sit there and lie to me. You want to teach those you deign to be worthy. You teach your way, Vlad, and I will do so my way. Gentlemen, as entertaining as this is, Mr. Bakugo, Nezu said with a smile as he took another sip of his tea. I am not his teacher, Vlad said. I have given my recommendation, Aizawa said. Well, then what of the other students? I believe all my students that participated in the brawl should be given 2 weeks of detention. Any that used their quirk 1 month, and 40 hours of community service. Since my students used their quirks in retaliation for being assaulted by students from one of Vlad said, I stand by the decision for Bakugo. The others will be demoted to general studies and be suspended for 1 week, Aizawa said. No, Mr. Aizawa, I don't think so. This is after all the 2nd day of the new year. This is what we are going to do. All students who participated in the brawl but did not use their quirk will be suspended for 2 days and serve 1 week of detention. 1B students who use their quirks will be suspended for 3 days and 2 weeks of detention. 1A students with quirk usage will be suspended for 5 days and 2 weeks detention. We will also have a meeting with the students and their parents before their return. 1A students who have any fractures between now and the sports festival will be demoted to general studies or expelled depending on the infraction. Izuku Midoriya will serve the same sentence as his classmates that used their quirk. Katsuki Bakugo will be suspended for 1 week and will serve Detention for 2 months. Should he commit any sort of infraction at all, he will be expelled from UA. He is to also attend mandatory sessions with Hound Dog. Depending on his reports, he will be demoted to general studies or expelled. This is also contingent on whether Mr. Midoriya or Ms. Yanagi's parents decide to press charges or not. Now deliver the punishments, and Mr. Aizawa, I highly suggest you impress the precarious position Mr. Bakugo is in. Both of you are dismissed. I have lawyers and parents to talk to. The 2 homeroom teachers exited the room. Saying nothing to each other, they headed to their classrooms. -1A. Aizawa walked into class and all his students immediately quieted down. He could hear Uraraka sniffling. Detention, Kirishima, Ashido, Ida, Uraraka, Ajiro, all 5 students stood up. You 5 are hereby suspended for 5 days and will serve 2 weeks detention when you return. Should you commit another infraction between now and the sports festival, you will be demoted to general studies if not suspended. Before you return to class, there will be a mandatory parent-teacher conference. Grab your things and leave. The 5 students grabbed their things. Ochako was just thankful she wasn't expelled, as were the others. Kirishima spoke up as he gathered his things. What of Bakugo and Midoriya, sir? I would worry about yourself, Kirishima. All the rest of you who participated in the fight are suspended for 2 days and will serve 1 week detention. Grab your things and leave. The rest of the combatants got up and walked out of the room, relieved that they weren't in as much trouble as the others, but dreading having to go home and tell their parents what had happened. We were going to handle this tomorrow, but I have something to attend to. You remaining 4 decide who is going to be class officers. I don't care how, just have it figured out by the time I get back. Anyone who is suspended is not eligible. -1B. Vlad walked in and handed out his class's punishments to their credit. The students stood and took their punishments without batting an eye. Before you all leave, Vlad said, pausing the exodus. While I don't condone your quirk usage, I understand why you reacted the way you did. I want to say that what I am proud of is that you all stood up for your classmates. I am even more proud of the ones that tried to stop the fight in the chaos. Do not let this sour your relationship with one or two badly. You will all be heroes in the field one day. Vlad turned his attention to his remaining 3 students. We are going to continue, but first I want you all to accompany me to the cafeteria for some ice cream. You guys deserve a reward for keeping your heads. The newly elected vice president of 1B walked along with her fellow class reps, President Momo and Treasurer Toru. Kyoko Gyro had no desire to assume any leadership role, but today had proven it did not care what she wanted. It had started with hope, but it was turned to ash in her mouth when the brawl in lunch hall occurred, except for the newly elected class reps, which was decided by Shoto simply walking out, leaving the 3 remaining students to fill the 3 roles. Kyoko had won the vice president seat via a best-of-3 paper rock scissors contest with Toru. Well, the position was hers until Mr. Aizawa expelled her, at the very least. As the trio made their way outside, she was surprised to see one Izuku Midoriya sitting on a bench waiting. As he saw a group of 3 individuals walking out, he smiled warmly and approached them. Hi Kyoko, are you still interested in training? Kyoko was taken aback. She had thought for sure that after the bullshit that Bakugo had pulled, there was 1, no way he would still want to train her, 2, he would most definitely be suspended. Aren't you suspended? She asked. I am, he said with a smirk. I live on campus, so they can't kick me off campus, and I read my suspension very carefully. There is nothing in there that says I can't work out. You still are willing to help. You didn't attack me or any of my classmates. Why wouldn't I? If it's because you share a class with Bakugo, that isn't your fault. Why punish you for him being a douche nozzle? Then yes, if you are still willing to help me, I accept, she said with a smile. Me too, Toru added with a fist pump. Momo looked over the boy at the center of the controversy. If it is not too much to ask, would you mind if I joined my classmates in this training you speak of? Sure thing. Let's head to the gym. Pony and Huryu is waiting for us. -2 hours later, Izuku stood, taking a drink off his water bottle, looking down at his classmates and the girls from 1A. I guess this is a good place to stop, then, he said, rubbing his head. Kyoka raised her hand. Yes, Kyoka. Are you the devil made flesh? He chuckled heartily. Not that I am aware of. Are you sure you don't have a quirk? Toru asked as she tried to sit up before collapsing back down. Positive. Huryu shivered shakily. Izuku, how are you still standing? I would normally still have another hour or 2, but I may have pushed you all a little far today, he said sheepishly. Please forgive what I am about to say, as I am sure that my opinion may be different later, but I hate you right now, Momo said as she managed to sit up. Thank you for taking time for us today, but I will drag myself to the showers and then call for my ride. Kyoka, Toru, I would be more than happy to drop you off at home, as I fear you are attempting to go home in your current state. Momo, I accept this, Kyoka said, struggling to her feet, Toru following suit. If you do not carry me to my room, Izuku, I will cry, Pony said. Izuku smiled. It would be my honor, Pony. Kyoka, Toru, I will see you at 6 a.m. He scooped up Pony's bridal style, who let out an eep before turning bright red as he carried her out. As the girls of 1A watched the scene, admiring the ease with which Izuku picked up his classmate, they looked at Huryu. Thank you for not holding ill will towards us and taking your time to help train us, Momo said. Huryu smiled. Izuku is my friend. If he still trusts you, that is good enough for me. See you guys later. He stumbled off, after being pushed to their limits by the boy from Class 1B, who effortlessly carried his classmate out of the gym. The girls of 1A headed to the locker rooms. They couldn't help but think about the strange boy and his incredible strength. Despite being quirkless, his determination had propelled him to another level. This realization inspired the girls to work even harder and strive towards reaching their potential. Pony. As Izuku held her, Pony's face turned bright red. She had joked about him taking her to her dorm, but as they walked, she began to have doubts. Despite her worries, she couldn't help but relish being in his arms, feeling his firm muscles beneath his compression shirt and enjoying his scent. However, she suddenly became self-conscious about her post-workout smell and feared he had noticed it too. Halfway there, she mustered the courage to ask, Izuku, do you mind if I ride on your back instead? I'm a bit embarrassed walking like this, and I'm sure I smell terrible. It's completely up to you, and I'm fine with either option. And please don't worry about your scent. You smell perfectly fine, he replied with a warm smile, meeting her gaze. He carefully helped her back onto her feet, then knelt before her so she could hug him from behind. I hope I don't smell too bad either, he chuckled. Pony was thankful for her new position to hide her face better. It is fine, Izuku. He carried her as promised to her door, setting her down gently. Pony had managed to regain her composure over the remainder of the trip. She rested her head against his shoulder, trying to ignore the feeling of his hand on her thighs and her heart pounding. Make sure you stretch out so your muscles don't cramp up. I will thank you, Izuku, she replied as she opened the door and stepped across the threshold. Pony, she turned to meet his gaze. It was warm, and she noticed his eyes were slightly moist. I just wanted to express my gratitude for your actions in today's lunchroom. Meeting you, Hurtful, and the rest of the class has been a significant support source for someone who has struggled to make friends. I genuinely appreciate your kindness and willingness to have my back. Please know that I am here to reciprocate that support in any way possible. Thank you again. He bowed to her, his head low. As she touched his shoulder, Pony reassured him, you don't have to thank me. We're friends, and that's what friends do. As he looked up, a radiant smile spread across his face, momentarily erasing all the fatigue and soreness from the workout. Pony briefly embraced him and affirmed, I'll always be here for you. After backing away, she noticed a faint blush on his cheeks and bid him goodnight before slowly closing the door. Hearing his gentle reply of goodnight, she couldn't help but smile even more expansively. Morning, Izuku stood patiently outside the gym, waiting for anyone to join him. He was engrossed in a small notepad, trying to figure out if he could afford a cell phone with his stipend. He didn't have many expenses, and he didn't go out much, but he liked the idea of being able to text people. Monoma and Ryuko had asked for his number earlier, which made him sad. While he wanted to become a hero, he also wanted to experience life. It seemed like he could afford a phone if he made the right choice, but he needed to figure out what kind to get. Hearing his name being called, he smiled as he saw Kyoka, Toru, and Momo walking up, a little sore still from what he could tell from their gait. He slipped his notepad into his back pocket and gave a friendly wave. What were you working on there? Kyoka asked as they got closer. I was seeing if I could afford a cell phone, he responded. I think I can, but I have no idea which one to buy. You never had a cell phone? Toru asked. I have never been able to afford one. My guardian wasn't financially stable and didn't believe in them. After his demise, I had to live in a shelter and couldn't afford one. However, now that I reside in the dorms and receive a stipend, I am considering getting one. Unbeknownst to him, Kyoka and Momo exchanged glances upon hearing his story. Momo stepped forward. I am sure that I can speak for my friends here. When I say that we wouldn't mind accompanying you to get one, we can offer our advice, say maybe this Friday. Thank you all. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's get to our workout. I promise to go easy on you three as you have class today. He flashed a smile that was meant to be reassuring, but instead, the three saw it as a spider that had just caught some flies. Class 1AB. After the girls finished their workout much lighter than yesterday afternoon, they were still sore, but it was manageable. They went to class only to find a note directing them to report to Class 1B. They entered the class to find Shoto already there, looking slightly more interested than usual, and the three members of 1B had not been suspended. The girl with vines for hair stood and walked over to them, giving a small smile. Greetings 1A, my name is Ibara, that is Yui and Manga, she said as she pointed to her other classmates. Welcome to our class. Momo smiled as it seemed the girl was doing her best to be welcoming after the brawl yesterday. Since these three were here, she could deduce that they had not participated in the fight. It is a pleasure to meet you, Ibara. I am Momo, and this is Kyoka and Toru. Thank you for having us. Kyoka supplied Sep and Toru with a cheerful hello. Yui waved, and Manga provided a welcome from his quirk. The girls took seats, and thankfully they didn't have to wait long as the door opened, and in walked Vlad. Welcome 1A, and good morning, my students. He paused as a good morning. Sensei rang and called back to him. Due to yesterday's incident and the resulting suspensions, we have made some temporary changes. As we have combined classes, you will be in my class for the next 2 days. Your classmates will return on Friday. Today, 1A's heroics class will be held with 1B. Friday's special heroics class has been rescheduled. As for 1B, we were supposed to hold an election today for class representatives, but since the rest of your classmates are suspended, the decision is up to you. The three of you can take on the roles, or you can wait for your classmates to return. The teacher observed as the three students gathered, and Ibara eventually stood up to decide. Sir, we all agree that we would love to be appointed as class representatives, but doing so without the rest of our classmates present would not be right. We want to wait for them to return, though we know this may remove our chances of obtaining the positions. Very well. Today we will begin with world history, followed by quirk history and heroic law. Open your texts to page 22 so we can begin. The combined class was rather pleasant with a smaller class size. Those that needed assistance or clarification could receive it. They even sat lunch together. Shoto even sat with them but seemed slightly sad that another brawl didn't erupt. Though the group got many looks from other classes, things took an unexpected turn during the heroics class when All Might entered the room. Instead of the planned 2-on-2 battles, the teams were tasked with chasing down a group of villains throughout the cityscape testing ground. The villains had stolen top-secret information and were attempting to flee the city. All Might provided coaching on pursuit and apprehension tactics as the teams rotated after each villain was captured or escaped. Despite encountering challenges, the exercise proved to be a successful team-building experience. Shoto struggled initially but eventually recognized the importance of communication within the team. All Might's guidance and demonstration of his actions' consequences helped Shoto understand the importance of listening and working together. All Might was nearly at a loss when Toru took the top-secret info wrapped in plastic, hid it in her mouth, and escaped. Or when Momo bribed Manga and Kyoka to switch to her side and escort her to the exit. The explanation that Momo gave All Might was that she had falsified the info showing that she was trying to expose corruption at the highest level, including that All Might was attempting to take over the country as part of a global conspiracy. She created a small paintball pistol to drive it home and killed Manga and Kyoka right before she escaped. All Might shivered at the girl's ruthlessness but admired her outside-the-box thinking. All Might also took the time to send Toru and Momo to the support department so they could begin building better superhero outfits. Momo was exposed to too much skin and had little protection, and Toru ran around in gloves and shoes. He told the girls about Geno fabric, created using a person's hair, which would function with their quirks. The girls ran off excitedly with their permission slips. He deflated and reviewed the student files as he returned to his office. He needed to find a successor. His time was running out. He could exclude Shoto because the boy was dealing with internal issues. He made a note in the file and sent a message to Hound Dog about counseling. Momo, Kyoka, Toru, Manga, Ibara, and Yui. They were all still worth considering. Momo's quirk would be excellent for the versatility and the boost it would receive from One for All. Toru's stealth and strength would make a potent combo, but the lack of visibility would make it hard for her to be a symbol for the masses. Ibara's quirk was good, but her steadfast adherence to her faith could cause issues. Yui had a good quirk but was too quiet. Manga quirk would be interesting to see how it would interact, and he had the proper attitude. Kyoka had a solid quirk, not very offensive but excellent for recon. If One for All were incorporated, she could be a force to be reckoned with. She had an engaging attitude and a good look. He would have to evaluate the other students as he got a chance to interact with them. He could quickly eliminate Shoto and Bakugo, leaving him with at least 38 other students to consider, plus others from the general studies and the higher grades. He was about to meet with the big three of UA. One of them had been recommended strongly by his former sidekick, Sir Nightai. Thursday, after the group's morning workout, Izuku was summoned to the principal's office. As he entered the waiting area, he saw Riko, who he could quickly ascertain were her parents. Riko smiled at him as he walked over. Her parents looked at him questioningly. He then bowed to them. "I am sorry that your daughter was hurt defending me," he said. Riko started to protest, but her father stopped her. "There is nothing for you to apologize for, young man. The only person that needs to apologize is this, Bakugo. Raise your head." Izuku did as asked. "Thank you, sir. I am extremely grateful for Riko's actions. I am a bit embarrassed about how the situation escalated." Her father extended his hand and leaned in. "Thank you for teaching that punk a lesson and defending my little girl." "It truly was my pleasure, sir," he replied with a smile. "Excuse me, Dad," she exclaimed, her cheeks turning slightly pink. Her father responded with a hearty laugh. Like Izuku, he was not very tall, standing at a height of 5'8" and possessing black hair and the same colored eyes as his daughter. In contrast, her mother was a towering 6'2" with silver hair. Although quiet like her daughter, she observed him intently, scrutinizing his every move. Riko and Izuku were seated close together and conversed about recent events and their purpose for being there. Riko's parents observed how their typically reserved daughter openly chatted with the boy. After learning about the scheduled mall trip on Friday after class, Riko expressed her interest in accompanying him. She glanced over at her parents, who gave their approval. She informed Izuku that she planned to attend class on Friday after her parents kept her home to ensure her full recovery from the attack. Her cheeks reddened as Izuku expressed his concern for her well-being. Their friendly chat ended when the waiting room door opened, and Bakugo appeared with his parents by his side. Bakugo glared at Izuku, who turned his full attention to the explosive teen. Ryuko's mother noticed that as he did so, he had turned. Putting his body in between Bakugo and her daughter, a small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. Before anything could be said, Izuku noticed that Mrs. Bakugo was looking at Izuku with her hand to her mouth like she had seen a ghost. Before anything could be said, the door to the principal office opened, and out stepped Professor Midnight, dressed in a business suit but still in her trademark glasses. "Would you all please come in?" She stepped to the side and motioned with her hand. "If the Yanagas and Mr. Midoriya would please sit on the right and the Bakugos to the left." The groups entered, noticing Eraserhead, Vlad King, and Principal Nezu sitting at the head of the U-shaped table. They noticed that there was also a man who looked like a police detective standing off to the side. Izuku gave the familiar face of Detective Tsukachi a brief smile as they were acquainted from his previous encounters with the police. Ryuko sat next to Izuku as everyone took their seat. Izuku noted that Midnight sat near Bakugo with only an empty seat separating them. Nezu rose from his seat. If any of you are unaware, I am the principal of UA. You may address me as Nezu. To my left is the pro-hero Eraserhead. He is Mr. Bakugo's homeroom teacher. To my right is Vlad King, and he is Ms. Yanagi and Mr. Midoriya's homeroom teacher. The man in the corner is Detective Tsukachi. He is here as a representative of the police. Professor Midnight is here to make sure that things are kept calm. Bakugo clicked his tongue and seemed about to say something before his mother gripped his arm and glared at him. Nezu did not react. We are going to review the footage of the incident. After that, we will hear from the Yanagas and Mr. Midoriya. Then Mr. Bakugo will have a chance to speak. I will tell you now that Detective Tsukachi's quirk is called Lie Detector, and it does exactly that. As the lights dimmed from the center of the room, a holographic projector lowered, and the security image with audio began. The footage displayed Izuku and his group seated at a table, seemingly idle. However, Bakugo entered the cafeteria yelling at a boy with red, spiked hair, calling him demeaning names. The footage also captured Bakugo noticing Izuku and immediately approaching him with his hands crackling. Izuku stood talking to his friends, and Bakugo launched his attack. It played up to the point that Kirishima attacked Izuku. As you saw, Mr. Midoriya had done nothing towards or even noticed Mr. Bakugo. A thorough review of all the security imaging showed they had not crossed paths since the beginning of the term the day before. Now we can obtain that Mr. Bakugo obliviously knows Mr. Midoriya, and his quirkless status from some outside means he also threatened to end the boy. When Ms. Inagi went to check on her classmate, he attacked her without provocation. As of now, Mr. Bakugo has been suspended for 1 week, assigned detention for 2 months, and ordered into mandatory counseling sessions with our lead counselor Hound Dog. Of course, that will start once his suspension is served. I find that completely unacceptable, Mrs. Yanagi said coldly. This animal should not have been just suspended but should have been expelled. He attacked this young man and our daughter unprovoked. I want to know why. Bakugo's anger flashed. Who was this beach to call him an animal? I was doing a favor by getting rid of this quirkless piece of shit. And you stupid beach of a daughter got in the goddamn way. Katsuki. His parents shouted. From the corner of the room, truth, the detective said emotionlessly. Aizawa sighed. This boy was F-ed. He looked at this student and then over at Izuku, shaking his head. Now, would someone care to explain to me how after an outburst like that, he is still in heroic course in UA? At all, Mrs. Yanagi said. It is obvious that he showed no remorse and was not given proper guidance. She stared at Bakugo's parents. The wife looked about to respond, but the husband placed his hand on her arm. I want him expelled, and I wish to press charges. UA and the Bakugos can also expect to hear from our lawyer at the end of the day. Mr. Midoriya, where are your parents or guardian? They are all dead, ma'am. I am here representing myself. Her eyes flashed in sympathy, as did her daughter's. Then allow me to extend our lawyer's services if you require it. What the F? Bakugo yelled, only for his mother to attempt to contain him. Mr. Bakugo. Eraserhead roared, and the boy immediately shut up. Do you understand what is going on here? Your tenure in this school is in danger. Any dream you have of being a hero is going up in smoke, and you are putting gasoline on the damn fire. If they press charges, your hero career could be over before you walk out the door. What school will take you with this on your record? Bakugo looked shocked. He glanced at his parents expecting them to make it somehow right. His mother looked at him and tried to convey the seriousness of the situation. But I am supposed to be the next number one, he said. Everyone said so. That's the problem, Mr. Bakugo. You are not the best. Your quirk isn't even the best in your class, let alone this school. Years of constant praise and enabling have filled your head with nonsense and stupidity. You didn't even score first on the exams. Mr. Midoriya did. First in practical and second in written test amongst all students, coming only second to your classmate Ms. Yaorazu, who gained admittance through recommendation. Nezu said, Mr. Midoriya, I won't be pressing charges, but I don't think his punishment is enough. I don't care that he attacked me. I do care that he attacked Ryuko. He shouldn't be allowed to continue the hero course. The problem is that he has always been praised for his quirk and potential. No one bothered to put a stop to it. He should be removed from the hero course, banned from this year's sports festival, with some sort of conditional agreement for participation in next year's festival. If he comes near me or my classmates again, I will be filing charges and lawsuits. I will not be suing the school or his parents. Whatever they have as apology money will be satisfactory. My only condition is that I want to meet with Eraserhead with Detective Tsukachi present. Aizawa raised an eyebrow and nodded to Nezu. Why don't you want him expelled? Riko said. He will likely just become some vigilante who goes too far one day on his misguided sense of justice and kills someone. or keeps falling until he becomes a villain. If this doesn't wake him up, then nothing will. He has never had to face consequences for his actions. Everyone gets a second chance but not a third. He said, "Truth," the detective said. "Mr. and Mrs. Yanagi, would you like to press charges? Are you going to expel him?" Mr. Yanagi asked Nezu. "No, he will be demoted from the hero course and banned from participation in the sports festival. I want him to attend counseling as part of his punishment. If there is no improvement, he will be expelled." Would pressing charges rob him of any chance of being a hero? No, it will make it more difficult, but the only person who can truly take that dream from him is himself. "Detective, we would like to press charges. While I would like to hope that this is the wake-up call this young man needs, he must still pay for the assault upon our daughter," Mr. Yanagi said. "Understood." The detective walked across the room. "Katsuki Bakugo, you are under arrest for illegal quirk usage, assault, and assault with a quirk to cause bodily harm. Please stand and place your hand behind your back." Katsuki reeled in shock. He looked towards the door like he wanted to bolt. He noticed midnight between him and there. His father walked over and placed his hand on his son's shoulder. "Your mother and I have failed you. Katsuki, don't make this worse. Your actions have brought us here." He helped his son to his feet and held his attention as the cuffs were placed on him. Katsuki looked around the room. Looking for someone to help him, he turned to his mother, who looked away. The door opened, and 2 officers walked in, taking hold of the blonde teen. They walked him out of the room. Mr. Bakugo came over and bowed to the Yanagas and Izuku. "I know that my son is the one that owes you an apology. I hope that he will grow to a place where he can say it honestly from his heart." He bowed again to Izuku and offered an envelope from his jacket. Izuku took the envelope, slipping it into his pocket. The Bakugos left, followed by the Yanagas and the other staff members, leaving Izuku, the detective, and Eraserhead. "So, what is it you wanted?" Aizawa said. "How far did Bakugo have to go for you to expel him? Was it because I am quirkless?" "No, lie," the detective said. "Do you believe I have a place here?" Aizawa was about to say yes, but he glanced at the detective. "No, truth. I have to say you are one of the worst effing teachers I have ever seen. You expelled a student on the first day and threatened to expel more over a quirk test. Yet you offer no help or ways for them to improve. One of your students violently attacks another, and you won't get rid of them because of potential. Watch your mouth. I am your superior and a teacher here at UA. You are a teacher here, but you are not my superior. I should have been in your class, but you passed me on because I am quirkless. I am glad you did. Vlad is 10 times the teacher you could ever be. You are a liability. You have no quirk to fall back on. What will you do when dealing with someone like Moonfish? Fight? What the hell are you going to do? Your quirk is useless on mutants. You are just going to get killed. As long as I make it pro, I don't care. Truth. Do you even understand what you are saying?" Aizawa said. "I perfectly understand it. I am quirkless. No matter what I do or achieve, I will always be viewed as less than by others. I am doing this for the endangered species that I am. Quirkless are a dying breed, but I want to give them hope. You view me as less than others. You heard Nezu and my scores, knew my scores, and still deemed me unworthy. Instead, you take someone with severe mental problems, someone whose problems could be seen by a blind man on the moon, and deem them to have potential. Did you even have plans for him to be put in therapy?" "Yes, I was evaluating him before I would suggest it." "Why?" Aizawa glared at the detective, who smirked back and gave him a shrug, and suggested, "Really, I am confident I can handle most of your class. The only ones I worry about are Momo and Todoroki. At the sports festival, I will show you in the world that I am here and that a quirkless orphan is a force to be reckoned with. When you see me on that podium, I hope you effing choke. I will graduate from this place and become a pro. Maybe some of your students will be there if you don't kick them out before they start. You know what? I have had enough of your sit. I am done with you. I should drag you out of here and kick your ass." Aizawa rose to his feet, taking hold of his scarf. Izuku stood up, and suddenly an enormous black sword appeared in his hand. The detective and Aizawa watched as the blade took unnatural darkness to it. A shadowy wisp hovered around the blade's edges. Izuku just smiled. "I'm your huckleberry." The door opened, and in walked Vlad with Nezu on his shoulder. "Put it away, Midoriya," Vlad said. "Yes, sensei." The blade disappeared. "I want this kid out of here, Nezu," Aizawa said as he pointed at Izuku. "No, Mr. Aizawa, I don't think so. He doesn't care if he dies. This boy is suicidal, and we are enabling him. No, Mr. Aizawa, he just understands that the deck is stacked against him, and his goal, unlike most, is not to be number 1, fame, or fortune. He wants to be a hero to inspire others. He can be a fine hero. And who knows, he might even live to enjoy it. And that is not your decision, Vlad King. Do you wish to expel Mr. Midoriya?" "Hell no," Vlad said with a smile. "If you have seen what his presence had done in my class alone, then even Aizawa would regret not taking him. You can leave now, Midoriya, and no pulling weapons on teachers." "Understood." "Yes, sensei," Midoriya said as he left. Nezu jumped down and dismissed Vlad. "You should be careful of telling people they can't do something. Mr. Aizawa, Nezu said as he walked over to pour himself some tea. Someone once told me I would never be more than a disgusting freak destined to die in a lab. I tore his throat out shortly afterward. And look at me now. Nezu smiled a most sadistic smile. Things never go the way you think. T. Friday. Izuku planned to visit the mall after class on Friday, and Pony joined him outside the entrance to wait for the girls from 1A. She wore well-fitted blue jeans and a white t-shirt featuring an American flag shaped like a skull. Izuku was dressed in blue jeans and a black long-sleeve compression shirt. When Pony asked if he had other options, he admitted he didn't. However, he did mention that he had purchased multiple shirts of the same kind since they were on clearance. Pony insisted that he get more variety in his wardrobe and promised he would have more options after today. A large part of the heroic class had returned to class today. With the rest of 1B to return on Monday, they watched the trickle of students come out. Ryuko spotted them immediately and came over with a small spring in her step as her eyes fell on Izuku. His classmates gave them a wave and offered excitement at having the class together again soon. When one exited, Izuku received mostly glares from boys as the Momo, Toru, and Kyoka made their way over with a smile. They were followed by a girl with green hair and a frog quirk. The girl walked over and bowed to the trio from 1B. I would like to apologize for my actions in the Brawl Tuesday. My emotions got the better of me when I saw Mina get attacked. There is nothing to apologize for. I should apologize for slamming you into the table, Ryuko said, returning the girl's bow. I hope this has not taken away any opportunity we may have of being friends. The other three bowed. No, we would love to be friends. You suffered the most from Bakugo's rampage. If you are willing, we would love nothing more, Momo said. Ryuko smiled as she lifted her head. Then let us be friends then. Please call me Ryuko. Call me Tsu, the girl replied. I would appreciate it if you two did also, she added, directing her comments to Pony and Izuku. It wasn't until the group started walking towards the train station that Izuku came to the dawning recognition that he was the only guy with 6 girls, very pretty, beautiful, and intelligent girls. Though he had just met Tsu, she seemed rather nice. He wished Huryu was here, but he had a scheduled call with this family, so Izuku understood his absence. He tried not to dwell on the group dynamic too much, but his brain became acutely aware as they crowded onto the train. They all smelled so lovely, so distinct. The ride was not too long as they disembarked with a crowd and made their way to the mall. Izuku stopped and stared for a moment. Momo asked, "Is this your first time to a mall?" Izuku nodded. There was a shopping center with a discount clothing store near where I lived, so that is where I bought all my clothes. I always thought about going. And honestly, I wondered what it would be like to go with friends. It makes me happy, you know, something to cross off the bucket list. Well, cross it off, green bean, Kyoka said as she lightly poked his side with her jack, causing a giggle from Izuku as his hands flew to his mouth. What was that? Kyoka said, laughing. Are you susceptible to tickles, Izuku? Ryuko asked inquisitively with her finger by her mouth, her head tilting to the side. "Too cute," was all Izuku's mind could immediately process. Well, that phone won't buy itself, he said, blushing and walking towards the mall. The girls laughed and walked after him. Don't be shy, Izuku. I am susceptible to them as well. A fact my father regularly exploits, Ryuko said as she caught up to him. You know I always wanted to go with friends to the mall as well, Momo added. You have never been to the mall with friends either, asked Pony. No, I was homeschooled. It wasn't until I came to UA that I have ever been able to interact with people my age outside of balls or garden parties, the heiress said. Well then, let's have a great time then for Momo and Izuku, Toru said, pumping her fist into the air. Yes, we should do our best to have some fun, Kiro, Tsu said. Besides, this first week of school has been anything but fun. Yes, this first week will not be forgotten easily, Pony said. After quickly checking the directory, they went to the phone store as Momo told the others about the first heroics class. And after she convinces us of her plot and we help her escape, she executed us with a paintball gun, Kyoka said. I had to wash my hair 3 times to get it out. I am sorry, Kyoka, Momo said, hiding her mouth as she chuckled. Ah, here we are. The group entered and walked over to the phones. Izuku looked utterly lost, turning to the girls with a look of a deer in the headlights. He mouthed the words help. They all laughed before setting about helping their quirkless friend. Momo first asked budget before they moved around the store looking at different phones. Each girl could help him narrow down his choices, helping him avoid getting something with too little storage or insufficient resolution. As he made his purchase, Pony spied an excellent phone case with a black sword inlaid on it. She picked it up with a smile. I am going to buy this for you, Izuku, she said. Pony, you don't need to do that, Izuku protested. You are correct, but I want to as a way for you to remember your first shopping trip. I don't think I would ever forget, but thank you, Pony. Kyoka bought him a pair of wireless earbuds, which she insisted on. Izuku didn't know what to say. He just looked at the girls. Thank you both so much. You don't truly understand what this means to me. Would it be inappropriate if I hugged you? Pony blushed slightly as she hugged him. First, Kyoka was a fiery red as she said, "It is not a big deal, but if you want to." She blushed harder when he wrapped his arms around her and hugged her tight. They stepped out with his new phone securely in its case. Izuku couldn't stop smiling. "Can I have your phone numbers?" "You don't have to if you don't want to." Ryuko stepped up first. "It would bring me much delight to share phone numbers with you." Izuku smiled. "Thank you, Ryuko." "How do we do that?" Toru laughed and said, "Here, I will show you." When the chime of shared contacts came from his phone, Izuku was beaming. Then, when the other girls stepped forward to do the same, he couldn't stop smiling. "Now what? Do we have to leave now?" he said, hoping the answer was no. "Oh, no, Green Bean, we are going to get you some new shirts," Kyoka said. "Yes, Kyoka, I very much agree. All he owns are those compression shirts. That is terrible, though it shows off your very nice muscles," Sue said without shame. "Sue," Momo said, slightly shocked. "What? He has very nice muscles. I say what's on my mind." Izuku blushed. "Well, I have quite a bit of extra money right now. Some new clothes would be nice." Together, they strolled and visited various stores, with the girls occasionally stepping inside to browse and seek Izuku's input. Though he didn't entirely comprehend their fascination with fashion, he recalled Inka's pointers and provided complimentary remarks. While exploring clothing boutiques, he selected several new shirts for himself. To his surprise, each girl gifted him a shirt. Sue apologized for the scuffle, while the others from One expressed gratitude for his guidance in training them, Pony and Ryuko, due to their friendship. Although Izuku found the outpouring of affection slightly overwhelming, he graciously accepted their thoughtful presence and felt content. They had a splendid evening after enjoying a meal at Big Belly Burger. They even taught Izuku to take pictures with his phone and capture memories together. Momo arranged for a car to drop everyone off at their respective destinations. Izuku expressed his gratitude to the girls for the fantastic day and hoped to repeat such an experience, preferably with more classmates joining them. Pony and he walked off to the dorms laughing and carrying on. "Limo, that was a delightful outing. Thank you again for the ride home, Momo," Ryuko said as the car drove away from the campus. "It was rather pleasant. I would very much like to do it again," Momo responded. "Izuku seemed to have a perfect time," Toru said. "It was nice to see that he is normal. During the fight and training, he is so confident. I was cool to see him act like a dork," Kyoka said. "I didn't notice it during the fight, but he is hot," Sue said, causing the car to go silent. "I can't be the only one that thinks so." Ribbit. "No, Izuku is very handsome," Ryuko added quietly, a blush on her cheeks. Momo blushed and smiled. "I wouldn't go that far, Sue, but he is rather nice. I would play tickle fight with him anytime," Toru said, causing the car to erupt into laughter. Quietly, Kyoka said, "You are not wrong, Sue, you are not wrong." The rest of the ride home, the girls talked about class and weekend plans. Foundations of friendship were laid down that evening. Izuku, after saying goodnight to Pony, much like a kid with a new toy, he knocked on Haru's door to get the boy's phone number. They only talked briefly before Haru excused himself from the conversation, citing that he was going to bed. Izuku decided to shower before calling it a night. He was settling down when his phone chimed. Unsure, he looked at it to see he had received his first text message. "Ryuko, I hope I did not wake you." "Izuku, I just wanted to say I had a lot of fun today." "Izuku, I did, too. Thank you for coming with me. I enjoyed it." "Ryuko, that is good to hear. If you had no plans tomorrow, you would be amenable to attending the aquarium with me. My father gave me 2 tickets and I would very much like it if you would do me the honor of accompanying me." "Izuku, that sounds like fun, but I have plans for the morning. Could we go in the afternoon?" Ryuko, "Yes, we could meet at the aquarium at 2 p.m. "Izuku, I can do that. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Just send me the address as I have never been." Ryuko, "I will do so. I will see you tomorrow. Good night, Izuku." "Izuku, good night, Ryuko." Izuku set his phone down, set an early alarm, settling down to sleep. A stray thought slipped into his mind just as he was about to sleep. Aquarium, alone with a girl, on the weekend. Is this a date? Like many before him and many that would follow, sleep would be hard to acquire when such thoughts enter someone's mind. The morning came a little bit sooner than Izuku could have wanted. But undeterred, he awoke dressed in his usual attire but making sure to pack a change of clothes for later in the day. He exited the dorms and began his trek to the soup kitchen. He wanted to visit his friends and talk with Inka about the possibility of what would happen later in the day, being a date. Inka and Silk were there to greet him as he entered through the employee entrance. They hugged briefly before getting to work on the breakfast of the hungry folk that would soon be filling the hall. The conversation quickly turned to his first week of school as the others arrived. The staff swore bloody vengeance when Izuku told them about the brawl in the lunchroom. Their bloodlust was slightly sated when they told them about Bakugo being expelled from the hero course and arrested. Inka paid close attention to Izuku when he talked of Ryuko. She had a knowing smirk when Izuku pulled her aside to talk about his rendezvous with the said girl later at the aquarium. Inka asked, do you want it to be a date? Izuku stopped and pondered it. I don't know, in the context of getting to know her better. Then yes, I don't know if in a romantic sense. It doesn't feel the same as with Anna. That's good, and nothing ever will feel exactly like that again. If it does, then it isn't real. Also, it is perfectly okay for you not to know Izuku. Many lovely ladies surround you, and some are interested in you. They are probably trying to figure it out for themselves as well. Remember, the mystery of life isn't a problem to solve but a reality to experience. Enjoy the moment. How many moments are you guaranteed? Simply 2, birth and death, and we control neither. Then enjoy this one, my Izuku, but for the love of God, tell me you are not wearing that to this date. Inka said while motioning to his clothes. Izuku smiled. No, I brought a change of clothes. Izuku enjoyed catching up with the other workers the rest of the morning, exchanging phone numbers and taking pictures. He found that he enjoyed capturing memories, something he could revisit. When Ando came in, Izuku ran out to hug her and talk. She was excited to see him and hear about his first week. Not wanting to worry her, he gave her a sanitized version of events. The trained psychologist raised an eyebrow and stared him down till he gave most of the truth, leaving out his confrontation with Hound Dog and Mr. Aizawa. After the breakfast service ended and the staff cleaned up, Inka let him shower quickly and get ready for this date. She kissed his cheek after styling his hair and ensuring he was presentable. Advice. Silk stepped over to the boy. As soon as somebody falls in love, all the wit seemed to dribble out the bottom of his head. Izuku laughed. I will keep that in mind. Silk, thanks, I guess. Izuku smiled and headed out the door, bound for the aquarium. Ryuko Friday night. Ryuko stepped out of the limo and entered her home. Her mother greeted her. The two women nodded to each other and immediately moved to the kitchen. Wordlessly, they moved into a quick routine of preparing tea. Once the tea was brewing, Ryuko quickly disappeared into her room, removing her uniform and changing into an oversized shirt and shorts before returning to the kitchen as her mother set the cookies on the table and took her seat. Ryuko took her seat. Both women were silent until tea was served. How was your return to school? Her mother began. Pleasant, except for a handful of missing classmates. It was good to be back. Ryuko replied. When will the full complement return? Monday. Are you far behind in your assignments? No, Vlad-sensei ensured I was sent all my assignments while I sat out after the incident. Your trip to the mall. Very pleasant. It was a large group. Izuku and Momo had never been to the mall, let alone with friends, so it was an endearing experience. We were joined by an additional girl from Wana who apologized for her role in the incident. I also apologized as I slammed her onto a table. At least no ill will is being harbored from them. Is there anything else? Yes, I am fairly certain that I am not alone in my affections for Izuku. How many others? To an outsider, their rapid-fire questions and answers back and forth would seem hostile or not proper for a mother and daughter, but the two of them were very similar in their dispositions and found this way to be their best way to communicate. The new girl, Tsu is her name, quite openly complimented his muscles and called him hot. Toru agreed with the statement, and Momo stated that while finding him physically appealing, she would want to get to know him better. I fear her interest may increase once she finds out he is brilliant. I was unsure of Kyoka until Izuku hugged her in thanks for a gift. I suspect she may like him more than her classmates. I believe Pony is a fierce rival due to her proximity and friendly nature. He carried her from the gym to their dorms after they worked out. They were able to exchange friendly banter. Also, he has been teaching her Japanese for at least 2 weeks before starting school. How does this make you feel? Uncertain. Izuku made quite an impression during the practical exam. I find him most visually appealing. Finding that not only did he make it into the heroic class, but that he has done so while Quirkless raised him even higher in my mind. I understand the scars, they are troubling, but I feel I understand after reflection. He has managed to unite our class and offers to help others without motivation for personal gain. It is all rather inspiring. With all that happened, I fear it can be a set of extraordinary circumstances fueling this crush. He appeared mysteriously at the exam to inflame your mind, only to disappear before you could find more. Upon starting class again, you find him appearing in your life, yet this time you find hardships and trials that he has faced to be there. He had a life of tragedy and discrimination, yet he made his way to the esteemed UA. The incident further reinforces the discrimination he has faced, increasing the fantasy. Exactly, mother, I am racked with unfamiliar thoughts. I am unfamiliar with these feelings. While there are a few boys I found attractive in school before, it was more of a passing fancy. After talking and learning more about them, it faded. Have you had a direct conversation with Izuku? Some, but not really. There are always others present. And we only had 1 day of class before the incident. Though he has a cell phone, the possibility of a conversation has increased. So, you have possible romantic rivals, but you are unsure you want to pursue Izuku romantically. That is correct. I am seeking counsel on how to proceed. Ask him out on a date. A date. But mother, a date is a way of getting to know someone better in an intimate setting. Once a physical attraction is established, a date is a way to see if a mental attraction can be established. Suppose you find something there that you wish to pursue further. 3 things will happen. You will find that you neither want to be friends nor pursue romantic involvement, which I find highly unlikely. 2. That the path of friendship is the best course. 3. That you are interested in more than a superficial manner and wish to pursue him romantically. That makes sense. But how do I go about that? I do not think I have built the confidence to ask him on a date. Then don't use the extra ticket excuse. He is a nice young man. He will accept first and may realize later the implications. Extra ticket. Oh, I have this extra ticket, and the person I would go with canceled. Would you like to go with me? Her mother said in a fake sweet voice. Works almost every time. That is how I got your father to go on a date. Ryuko raised an eyebrow. Where did you two go? Realizing she didn't know much about her parents' courtship, she had always thought that her father had relentlessly pursued her mother. We went to an aquarium. Then I talked him into dinner, and at the end, I did a wall slam and claimed his lips for a minimum of 20 minutes, then went home. Mother, Ryuko exclaimed, her face going red. I found your father attractive and was not about to let him go very easily. We may have a cool demeanor for the world, but our blood burns hotter than most. People will mistake our lack of emotion for lack of passion. They are very wrong. I would like to take him to the aquarium. Good, then go tell him. Let him suggest a time, and I will buy the tickets. Ryuko jumped off her seat and ran to her room. From the living room, a voice called out, Did you have to tell her about the wall slam? I did, and in fact, I want you in the room as soon as I am done buying these tickets for our daughter. Yes, dear. Date day. As Ryuko got off the train, she felt a rush of butterflies in her stomach. She had been nervous all morning, especially about her choice of clothing. She sought her mother's advice and wore a navy blue blouse that complemented her pale skin and accentuated her waist, a black wide-brim hat, a simple silver chain, earrings, a black skirt, and matching heeled sandals. She hoped that her date would appreciate her outfit. During the journey, she indulged in daydreaming about what she wanted to happen on this date, but she knew she couldn't let her flights of fancy and hormones take over. Slamming a wall was out of the question. As she stepped off the mode of transportation, she felt hopeful that her expectations of him were accurate and that he would exceed them. She could feel her heart beating rapidly as she spotted him standing beneath the clock. He looked dashing in a fitted dark green button-down shirt, showcasing his toned physique with rolled sleeves revealing his muscled forearms. His black pants and shoes completed the look. Her cheeks reddened slightly as she noted that he had even styled his hair for their meeting, showing that he had put effort into it. He noticed her approaching. Standing to greet her properly, she opened with the typical greeting of "Hello, Izuku. I hope you were not waiting long." He replied with the standard, "No, I had only just arrived myself, Ryuko. I must say that you look very pretty today." "Why, thank you, Izuku. I am pleased with your outfit as well. Shall we proceed to the aquarium?" "Of course," he responded, turning and offering her his elbow. Shyly, Ryuko took his arm and walked towards the aquarium. At first, the walk was silent. Both did not know how to proceed, and Izuku remembered Inka's advice again. "Thank you for inviting me again. It was a nice surprise. Also, I get to cross another thing off my bucket list, going to the aquarium with a friend." Izuku blushed some. "Yes, let's go with that." Ryuko smiled. "I'm glad I can do so for you. So, I take it this is your first time?" "Yes, always wanted to go, but you know," he said with a slight shrug. They walked arm in arm through the exhibits talking. Ryuko would point out some things from previous visits that she had found fascinating. She discovered they loved books, mysteries, and the unknown. He needed to be better versed with pop culture but had seen some older horror movies, much to her delight. They were discussing a senior American author and his alarming book involving clowns. She giggled at how this brave boy at her side proclaimed he might have to consider tripping a child and running from a demon clown. After watching the dolphin show, he smiled at her warmly as she gushed about her love of dolphins. Seeing her passions emerge over their aquarium date was lovely. Ryuko, for her part, couldn't remember when she had laughed and smiled so much. Then he bought her a stuffed version of the star dolphin, Comet. They sat eating ice cream, watching the Sea Ray exhibit and enjoying the scenery and each other's presence. "This has been fun, Ryuko. Would you mind if we did this again sometime?" "I would enjoy that, Izuku. I would enjoy that very much," she replied, squeezing Comet. "Would like to get some dinner. Or do you have to go home?" "Dinner sounds lovely," she said with a smile. They made their way to the exit, her taking his arm. "Do we look like a couple?" they both thought. He led her to a nice nearby yakiniku restaurant. He insisted on paying as the ticket to the aquarium was already paid for. "Have you ever had a girlfriend before?" she asked. "No, there was this girl named Anna. She was the first girl I liked that way. But when her parents found out I was quirkless, they forbade us from speaking. They even left the area soon after. All because you were quirkless." "Yes, her parents didn't seem to mind that we were getting closer till they found out I was quirkless. Then it all went downhill." "That's terrible," Ryuko said. "What are your views on romance then?" For some time, I had given up on the idea, assuming that I wouldn't find anyone who would accept me. However, now I am open to the possibility. As Vlad-sensei mentioned, our lives can be cut short after graduation, and mine even more so. It's surprising to discover how many individuals accept and embrace me for who I am. This has exposed me to a newfound perspective on life that I thought was unattainable. Though it may sound melancholic, I had relinquished hope in attaining what I deemed unattainable. How about yourself? I strongly desire to meet someone and have a romantic experience. My parents' love for each other is not obvious to everyone, but it is evident to me. Witnessing their love every day motivates me to want to experience the same. Although being a hero may present challenges, I will work hard to maintain it if I find the right person. The two just smiled at each other, thinking about what the other had said. Both understood what was being said between the lines, though they needed to be bolder to act on it. Their feeling was still clouded. Time may not be on their side in the long run. But it was for now. He walked her to her train. They both stood there somewhat awkwardly, unsure how to proceed. As the train pulled up, Ryuko took the initiative, embraced Izuku tightly, and he responded immediately. "Thank you for a lovely day, Izuku. It was my pleasure. Please let me know when you got home safe." "I will." With a slight step back, she let her thoughts wander into a world of fancy and the desire to kiss him. But instead, she chose to express her happiness with a smile and boarded the train. He stood there, watching the train depart before making his way to his own station, feeling a sense of lightness and happiness. The ability to dream once again was a pleasant feeling. Sunday is a fun day. After the aquarium events, Izuku found himself almost in a whimsical mood. His morning thoughts drifted to Ryuko and their date. It was a tentative reaching out on both their parts. They both were unsure of their exact feelings, and that was okay. Typically, being unsure might have set Izuku on edge. But his teacher had taught him that it was okay to be uncertain going into an unknown situation, but to make sure you had enough information that whatever surprises occurred that would not be deadly. It was nice to have something other than training or study. The weekend had a series of fulfillment and stuff he thought only obtainable in dreams. A trip to the mall with friends and a date was enough to banish more intrusive thoughts and allow Izuku to continue with flights of fancy that occupied most teenagers. During idle musings, a knock at the door brought him back to his surroundings. Immediately banishing any nefarious thoughts, he quickly guessed that it was either Pony or Hurtful. To his delight, Pony stood in a lovely white tank top that clung to her curves and a pair of short jean shorts. "Hello, Pony. Is everything okay?" "Everything is good, Izuku. I wanted to watch movies with my friends. Hurtful is busy. Would you like to watch movies with me today? I wish to relax before school starts tomorrow." "That sounds like fun, Pony. Come in." After some quick microwave popcorn, the duo settled on the floor with the tub between them while Pony handed him a Coke. The two clinked cans and, laughing, cheered as the movie began. Soon they were lost in watching a pre-quirk action movie, laughing at the one-liners and cheering at the over-the-top action. What had started as something seemingly innocuous, Izuku noticed that Pony had moved closer to him, the popcorn bowl resting in her lap. By no means was it unpleasant, but it drew Izuku's attention to the fact that she was most definitely a girl and was very close to him. The real trouble was that every time he went to grab some popcorn or hazard a glance over, he was graced with a lovely view down the top of the American girl's tank top. He did his best not to look, but hormones are powerful and something no teenager could ever hope to master fully. Feeling a sense of relief and a sense of sadness as the movie ended, Izuku expected their snuggling to end when she got up and was bent over in front of him for what seemed like an inordinate amount of time. Izuku found himself actively ogling her backside along with her firm bare thighs. Blushing furiously, he tore his gaze away and looked over at the ground in an attempt to calm his beating heart and rampant blood flow. He was surprised but not disappointed when she returned to her previous position. When he looked over, he found her large blue eyes looking up at him, with a coy smile on her lips. He noticed that they had a shine. Was she wearing lipstick? Then the other side of his brain screamed at him that he was staring at her lips like a creep. Looking away, he managed, "Another movie?" "Yes, you don't mind." "Of course not." As she faced the screen, a smile graced her lips. She couldn't help but notice his gaze lingering on her lips and chest. She had deliberately taken her time while changing the movie, and it seemed like her mother's advice from the previous night was paying off. It was time to move on to the next part of the plan, watching a horror movie. As the title screen came up on the screen, The Demon's Dance, Izuku froze slightly. He had heard something about this movie. It was the latest American horror masterpiece from Stephen Nolan. The American director has dominated cinema since his stunning debut, A Walk in the Rain. As the film started, the sun had begun setting, turning the room into shades of red and orange. Their attention, though, was commanded by the movie, and he didn't notice that Pony had grabbed his arm. Once he was aware, it was hard not to catch, especially when she squished into him, hiding her face. The softness pressed against him was short-circuiting his brain. He could see her peeking out only to let loose and eat before shutting her eyes tight as the movie ramped up. Izuku was becoming aware of the scent of wildflowers. Needless to say, it was intoxicating. Despite his best efforts to concentrate on the movie, Pony's actions were too distracting and caused him to constantly shift positions due to increased blood flow. When the film finally ended, he experienced relief and regret. As Pony glanced back at her, he held his arm tightly. He couldn't help but be captivated by her stunning blue eyes and could not look away. Despite his training, this was a situation that his mind and body had never prepared for or anticipated. He could only think of what Inka had told him about listening to his heart. His heart was screaming at him to kiss her. Unfortunately, his brain had checked itself into witness relocation and could not offer a counterargument when she closed her eyes and leaned slightly forward, her head tilted upward. All sense of reason or counterarguments that may have existed died. They leaned towards each other, lightly and slowly, their lips mere millimeters apart, when there was a knock at the door shattering the spell. He wondered if something could be a godsend and a curse as he got up to answer the door. Pony wanted to blast whoever was on the other side of the door. Though she firmly expected it to be Huryu due to the day and time, she was still right there. Silently she cursed whatever entity had disrupted her. Sure enough, it was Huryu coming to visit. With her chance stolen, she just settled into hanging out with them and letting the day pass. When she went to leave, she lingered, allowing Huryu to exit his room, leaving them alone again. Izuku Midoriya, she said. He turned to answer, only for her to lean up and seize her moment, refusing to allow it to be stolen again. When she felt him melt into her, she knew she had made the right decision, and stepping back, she smiled. I do not care what others will say, but know that I have an attraction to you. With that, she turned and walked down the hall to her room. His heart was pounding, and the smell of wildflowers lingered. Confusion was the game's name for the rest of the night. He had kissed Pony, he was sure of that. He had gone on a date with Riko and had wanted to kiss her afterward as correctly, but he had failed to act. He grabbed his hair in frustration and turned to the internet for answers. He would regret that decision like many before and after. Monday morning, Izuku rose early and went to the gym to meet Kyoka, Toru, and Momo. Curiously, he noticed that Kyoka was wearing light makeup, which he had never seen her do before. Her lips were a shade of purple with matching eyeshadow that played with her hair color. She seemed to be blushing today while Momo whispered things in her ear. His brain was not ready for this sudden awakening of women and their forms, it just wasn't. He also had to question when they emerged in new workout clothes that seemed to scream that they were, in fact, girls. Momo and Toru had decided to focus on muscle building, which had them concentrating on the machines, leaving him and Kyoka to work on exercises and techniques to increase her quirk test results. Why this necessitated him standing near her for some form of adjustment would have never bothered him. But after this weekend, he found it was doing just that. The casual way she moved, or the curves of her frame, was enough to make him explode. The occasional blush he would catch on her cheeks caused his own to rise. The looks and giggles he would hear from the workout equipment would not help either. As they were wrapping things up, Kyoka stopped him. Izuku, I just wanted to say thank you, and I know it might be silly, but if you ever wanted to learn how to play an instrument or something, I would happily teach you. You can play. Yay, I love music. For a while, I was going to be a musician before I decided to be a hero, but I still love music. I know that you are pretty smart and stuff, so I can't help you study, but I wanted to find a way to thank you and maybe teach you something in return. You know, she said all this while absently twirling a jack around her finger. To destroy is easier than to create, Izuku said. All my life, I have been taught that. I think it would be nice to learn something I can use to create. Is that a quote? The first part, yes, Ivan Klima, he said. I would like you to teach me how to play an instrument. Could you teach me the guitar? Her smile almost exploded. Yay, I am pretty good with a guitar. It was one of the first things I learned to play. Maybe you want to come to my house this weekend, and we can get started? That sounds amazing, he responded with his smile. Great, she said, jumping back. I will text you my address, and we can set up a time, she called as she turned and bolted for the locker room. Izuku just smiled and went to get ready for class. -1B. The class was whole again as the last of their suspended classmates filled in the smiles of the rest. Izuku had tried to catch Pony to talk about what had happened, but the girl had dodged him expertly. Ryuko was more than happy to fill the spot, the girl falling in step with him as they headed to class. It was a comfortable feeling for Izuku to see everyone together again. As he was telling Setsuna of his trip to the mall, the girl was upset that she wasn't invited, making him promise that he would do so next time. But when she found out he now had a cell phone, it was all forgiven as long as he shared his number with her so they could text. It was fun as others came over to share their numbers with him as his contact list grew. He walked over to Tagaru as he was the last person in class for whom Izuku did not have his contact information. Tagaru glared at Izuku for a second before he shared his contact information. Don't bother me with stupid shit. I just want your number to remind you who number 1 is, academically or physically. Izuku responded with a deadpan look. Academically, I got you beat, and physically we can find out in heroics class, but don't go crying when I win. PFFT, like I could lose to you. He responded as the bell rang, and Izuku quickly found his seat. Vlad King walked in. Seeing his class full made him smile. First of all, welcome back, everyone. Now that everyone is here, we have some things to take care of that we would have handled last week if not due to the incident. An opportunity to elect as class president was given to those who were not suspended and chose to wait for everyone to return before we chose a class representative. Ibara stood up. Sir, I would like to nominate Izuku Midoriya. May I ask why, Ms. Shizaki? You asked that we wait for the rest of the class to hold these elections. Do you not want the position yourself? I would. Though Mr. Midoriya has genuinely inspired our class. His presence has brought us together by showcasing what we can aspire to beyond our quirks. He has displayed the extent of his determination to attain his objectives and protect us. Furthermore, an episode occurred, and we all felt compelled to stand up and defend him, although I believe the violence escalated because of 1A. I would follow him into battle, and I know he would do the same for me and everyone else in the class. Izuku Midoriya became the class president of 1B without ever volunteering for the position, and Itsuka Kendo was elected as the vice president. Ibara took the class secretary position, and Nyaranjiki became the class treasurer. After resolving the previous issue, Vlad King informed the class about the makeup work that needed to be completed. Additionally, he announced that more heroic courses would be added to the schedule. The type on Friday would be a joint session with 1A, and any repeat of the previous incident would not be acceptable. To ensure the safety of all students, he expected them to avoid any conflicts, but they were permitted to defend themselves and their peers if necessary. Achako, the girl, sat nervously with her parents just outside the principal's office. Her parents were furious when they received a call from their daughter's school about the fight. They were disappointed when they heard the details from their daughter. What hurt Achako the most was that she had resorted to using her quirk in an inter-class brawl because one of her classmates had attacked a quirkless student. The fact that a quirkless student was even in the heroic course at UA was a shock to them, but that Achako hadn't stepped in to stop her class for this bout of gross stupidity. She had helped to escalate the situation. When the door opened and out walked Ida with his family, he looked defeated. He avoided eye contact and quickly left. Achako didn't have much time to stew on it as Mr. Aizawa stepped out and called her and her parents in. Thankfully, once everyone had taken their seats, the principal looked at the girl and asked her to explain to him, her teacher, and her parents why she should be allowed to remain at UA and in the hero course. Achako took a deep breath and stood up. I take full responsibility for my actions and deeply apologize for what happened. I cannot offer excuses for my behavior, and I acknowledge that what I did was wrong. I have spent much time reflecting on the incident and still cannot understand why I acted the way I did. Bakugo's behavior was unacceptable and went against everything I believe a hero should be. As a hero, I strive to be better than that, and I want to make amends for my actions. I want to prove to everyone that I can be a hero that not only my parents will be proud of but also the UA Academy. Please allow me to show that I can be better and deserve to stay here. She hastily wiped her tears away. I humbly request another opportunity. I assure you that you won't regret it. If not, may I apologize to Itsuka Kendo and the rest of 1B, particularly Izuku Midoriya. Nezu leaned forward, his hands steepled in front of him. Ms. Uraraka, while you are truly sorry and regret your actions, I will not remove you from the hero course or UA. There was a pending matter of you using your quirk against Ms. Kendo and if she wished to pursue charges against you. Achako's heart sank. She has chosen not to. You will be expected to apologize to her formally and Mr. Midoriya as well as their class. You will be eligible to return to school Wednesday, and you will serve detention for 2 weeks upon your return. A notation will be placed on your record. It will be removed if you can complete the rest of the year without incident. Should there be another incident, you will immediately be removed from the hero course and possibly expelled, depending on the severity of the offense. Thank you, sir, she said, bowing as her parents did. Lunch, stepping back into the incident scene was interesting, to say the least. Though seeing Midnight and Ectoplasm playing the role of monitors was an excellent deterrent. A collective breath was held when Izuku walked over to the table. Momo, Toru, and Kyoka sat and asked to join them. The 3 girls smiled at their friend as he took his seat. Everyone seemed to relax except a few boys from one shooting death glares. They were joined by Pony and Huryu, who sat and began talking with the girls, followed by Tsu and Riko. Izuku was smiling. Sitting with friends and eating such fantastic food was lovely. He wasn't sure which punishment was worse, suspension from class or being denied eating lunch Rush's creation. Momo was congratulating Izuku on his ascension to class president like herself. Still, before he could comment, the whole lunchroom panicked as the security alarm erupted. The group immediately jumped up from their seats. Kyoka wobbled, grabbing her head at the loud noise. Instinctively, Izuku, sitting next to her, wrapped his arm around her protectively. Thankfully, he couldn't see how bright her face was at her current situation. Before anything could escalate, the booming voice of Midnight rang out, calming the students and directing them to their evacuation points. "Are you okay, Kyoka?" he asked. The girl nodded, not wanting to break the embrace but wishing that no one else was around. Reluctantly, she gently pushed away. "Yeah, the alarm plus everyone freaking out did a number on me," she said. The group made their way out, heading to their evacuation sites. The classes were gathered on the field as the security threat was cleared, leaving the students to talk and socialize. 1B was cautious as this was the closest they had been to 1A. Izuku and Itsuka were talking to their sister reps about the first council meeting coming up when they could see the boy with a lightning streak in his hair appearing to argue with Toru while pointing towards Izuku. "I take it there are some in your class that still have some sort of problem with me?" he asked. "Sorry, we have some real idiots. Denki seems to like running his mouth. I wouldn't worry about it," Kyoka answered. "Well, I hope they get it under control before our joint training Friday," Itsuka said, looking toward Momo. "What training?" Momo asked. "Didn't your teacher tell you guys?" Itsuka asked, genuinely concerned. The utter confusion on Momo and Itsuka's faces told her all she needed to know. "Vlad-sensei told us this morning that we are doing joint class training on Friday." "Good to know. But Mr. Aizawa hasn't been in class today. Professor Midnight has been our homeroom teacher," Kyoka said. "I wish she would stay. She doesn't make us feel like we are about to get expelled if we breathe wrong." "Yay, Mr. Aizawa is in a hole," Izuku said matter-of-factly. "Izuku," Momo said with a shocked tone. "You shouldn't speak of the faculty in such a way. His methods are different, but..." "No, Izuku is right. He is in a hole," Kyoka added with a grin. "Momo, he isn't threatening to expel you because you did well on the quirk test and are a recommended student. You know what he said to Toru and me. And if it weren't for Izuku offering to help us, then I would be screwed." Momo looked like she wanted to retort to her vice president's statement she honestly couldn't. He hadn't addressed the incident in any fashion. He hadn't offered any assistance to the students he was threatening to expel. He seemed more concerned with his naps than handling the class. He gave them a paragraph each of feedback from their heroic style with all might, the #1 hero in the country, having given them at least 2 pages. Before they could talk, the all clear sounded, and they had to return to their rooms. Detention. 1B found themselves in the gym going through basic fighting drills, and 1A was sitting in their class writing about the quirk laws. After school, Izuku was worried they would have to cut the afternoon workout short, but Momo assured him that she had already arranged a ride for her and her classmates. Izuku was working closely with Kyoka and Toru. Backed by Pony, he was distracted not so much by the girls but by the fact that Huryu seemed out of it. He hardly saw his friend all weekend and still seemed distracted in class. He is doing his best to put it out of his mind for now, instead focusing on things the girls could do to improve their scores. Momo seemed to be enjoying the camaraderie more than anything. Izuku and Huryu were in the locker room getting changed. "Huryu, is everything okay? Did something happen?" At first, Huryu seemed dismissive of Izuku, but he eventually opened up. He shared that his family in China was not pleased with his suspension from school. Being known for their dragon-related quirks, Haryu's abilities were considered inferior. As a result, he was allowed to train in Japan. In the meantime, they had all but disowned him but were upset because of the perceived shame he had brought upon their name. The situation took aback Izuku. Throughout his life, he had been mocked for not having a quirk. He had witnessed others being mistreated for having weaker quirks. But Huryu's quirk was neither inadequate nor non-existent. Despite this, Huryu faced discrimination from his own family because his quirk was not similar enough to theirs. His friend was suffering for actions he had taken while protecting him. Discipline from the school was one thing, but he had never considered the backlash his friends or classmates would receive from their families. As he didn't have a family, he didn't believe it. "I wish I knew what to say. Huryu, to think they would toss you aside because your quirk doesn't measure up to their standard and not see it for how awesome it is," Izuku said. "It made me question many things, to be honest. It hurt, it still hurts, but that is part of the reason I am here. To show them how great of a hero I can be. And when I do, and they ask me to come back, I will tell them no. I want to become my own man, my own hero." It was just having to listen to their lectures and talk about not what happened or why I did what I did but how this could reflect on the family name in China. Huryu said, fire returning to his voice. "I will jump into that fight again if given a chance, Izuku, and I will jump in the next one. You are a friend. Not because of my family name but because of me. I will always cherish that. Sorry if my mood made you worry. It's fine, you have a lot going on. Thank you for sharing with me." I promise that together with the others, we will change everything," Izuku said, matching Haru's fire. The two boys laughed and fist bumped before finishing changing. When they came out, Pony looked at them and smiled. "Feeling better, Haru?" she said. "Yes, I am. Thank you, Pony." With that, the group split, with one A heading to the gates and 1B heading to their on-campus dorms. The 1B trio decided to eat and study together to work on getting caught up for the classes they missed. With Haru there, it kept any uneasy tension from the kiss the night before. When they left Izuku's room, he wondered if she would stay behind again. He was grappling with wanting her to but wanting to understand what was happening. She had told him she was attracted to him. He found her quite pretty and physically attractive as well. She answered part of the question as she exited before Haru told Izuku goodnight as he went to the room. Haru followed only a short time after, leaving Izuku alone. His phone lit up a few moments later, and it was Riko texting about a homework question. The conversation seemed relatively short before it had turned into them just talking about different things. He was amazed at how fast she could type her responses and was still getting used to the digital keyboard. They didn't talk long, but it was pleasant. When the conversation ended, he decided to listen to music as he studied some more, plugging in Kyoka's headphones. Before he drifted to sleep, he briefly considered if going to a girl's house to learn guitar was someday. No, Airo Kirishima. Mina had just exited the room crying. She told him she wasn't expelled before her parents, who looked furious, escorted her out the door. Airo sat there with his mother and father, waiting for their turn. Airo had been annoyed since the incident. No one had heard from Bakugo, as no one could get his number. He didn't have anyone's number besides Mina, but that was because they went to middle school together. He had heard from Mina, who had Toru's number, about the class elections, the other people talking some. It was when he heard that apparently Momo, Toru, and Kyoka had not only had lunch with that mother effer Izuku today, but they had also gone to the mall with that loser on Friday. Then to top off this shit sandwich, he found out they were working out with that a whole even after the whole lunchroom fight. The more he thought about it, the more annoyed he became. The whole class didn't care that Bakugo had been goaded into the fight and was being made to look like the bad guy. And the fact that somehow the one responsible for it all was back in class hitting on the girls in his class was making him fume. But it would all be okay. He would get back into class, Bakugo would serve his suspension, and then it would all be gravy. Izuku Midoriya. He would get him sooner or later, especially after the heat died. Airo parents were pissed at him even after he explained they didn't understand. Why couldn't they figure it out? They were supposed to be wise, his mother a doctor and his father an engineer. Yet here they were madder at him than the injustice that had been done. They had even grounded him for 3 months, doing his best not to let his anger and frustrations show, though failing miserably. He and his parents were invited into the office where the principal and his home teacher sat waiting. After offering tea, they sat down while the incident was played, including audio from the start of the fight to shortly after he interfered. Like a man should, he thought. His other immediate thought was that they had to have edited the video in some fashion. There was something that Punk had to do to piss off Bakugo like that. Was there a previous interaction between Mr. Bakugo or Mr. Midoriya? His father asked. None on school grounds, and as Mr. Midoriya has been living in the dorms since his admittance, we can say that there was no interaction between the two in a minimum of a month and a half. Also, according to testimony from Mr. Bakugo and Mr. Midoriya, they had not crossed paths since they were 6 years old. The president responded. Now, as you can see here, he continued rewinding the holoprojection and zooming in on Airo. You can see that your son activated his quirk before entering the fight and struck Mr. Midoriya while asking him to calm down. Not the most tactically sound course of action to de-escalate a fight. Is it true that Mr. Midoriya is quirkless? His mother asked. Yes, ma'am, he is, but he scored the highest on the entry exam despite that. Isn't that right, Mr. Aizawa? That is correct. The man answered. Has anyone else been expelled? His mother inquired. Not yet, Mr. Aizawa said, looking at the emotions on Aijiro's face. Mr. Bakugo has been removed from the hero course and is facing legal ramifications due to his action. Mr. Midoriya has agreed not to press charges against your son and informed you that he will not pursue legal action, citing that whatever you deem fit for an apology will satisfy him. The problem I see in front of us is that your son feels that he was in the right and that his actions were just. I would completely agree if he had stepped in, not assaulted Mr. Midoriya, and pulled him back. But his actions caused a cascading effect that led to many bad decisions being made by students on their second day. Now, Mr. Kirishima, would you care to say anything? Airo was hot-headed and not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he understood his predicament. His teacher had just told him that Bakugo was out of the hero course and facing legal trouble, according to the principal. There was a possibility that while nothing had happened recently, obviously Midoriya had done something to Bakugo in the past, causing the blood feud, while his mind began to create wild speculations to justify Bakugo's actions and that this event made Bakugo so prickly. If he didn't say the right thing, he would be kicked out of the hero course and never get the chance to expose that a hole for the piece of shit he was and get Bakugo back into the hero course. Flights of fantasy are genuinely a wonderful thing. The mental gymnastics being performed to justify his actions would have won a gold medal if such a thing was possible. Seeing everything before me, I can see that I handled the situation wrong. I acted before I thought and should have made a different call. While Bakugo should not have attacked that girl, the reaction of Midoriya and his level of violence spurred me to act hastily and without forethought. I am at your mercy to allow me to continue here at UA and in the hero course. Please give me another chance to correct the wrongs that day. Mr. Kirishima, very well put, Nezu said, leaning forward in his seat. We will grant your wish. You will serve your 2 weeks of detention upon your return tomorrow. Should there be any incident with Mr. Midoriya, you will be expelled. You are to deliver a full apology to Mr. Midoriya by the end of day tomorrow. Yes, sir, he responded. His parents handed over an envelope to the teacher so he could pass it on to Midoriya, which made Airo grind his teeth some as they exited. He would try to argue his case again, only for his parents to shut him down and tell him to focus on his schoolwork and not get expelled. Airo just sat back in a huff and stared out the window, his master plan beginning to take focus. Airo super genius Kirishima, what's your master plan now? Surely you can see that the path to victory is forever close to you. Should you surrender, I shall grant thee mercy and record your valiant battles in the annals of history as those who almost defeated me. Izuku looked at his hand and into the confident eyes of his opponent. His actual opponent, Set, Pony, and Itsuka were not a threat. They were no longer an obstacle on his path to victory. They had too many cards left. It was down to him. And Ryuko, her declaration of Uno, had laid the pressure at his feet. He knew he was the only one that could hold off the fierce warrior in her pursuit of victory. With a sly smile that made his opponent's lip tremble, wild card draw 4 color green. You fiend, how could you? Easily, my dear Uno. Of course, they both lost as Itsuka went on a run, leaving the 2 stoic combatants hanging their heads in defeat while Itsuka smiled. There is nothing better than snatching victory from those who are so confident in their victory. The group shared a laugh as the rest of the tables finished their rounds in the Class 1B tournament to crown the Grand Uno Championship. Detention was an exciting affair. In the end, Kanoko stood victorious, holding her plastic trophy over her fallen opponents. It's always the quiet ones, Set commented. And the Spanish Inquisition, Izuku added. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition, Rico and Pony added, looking at each other in surprise, which immediately sparked the two talking furiously about the brilliance of Monty Python. The 2 girls shifted their attention to Izuku as he filled out a form that Vlad-sensei had brought. What you go there, Greenie? Set said, peering over his shoulder. Her voice seductively whispered in his ear. He stiffened slightly and blushed, which was a victory for Set. I am filling out a club form. You're joining a club? Rico asked, her focus now totally on what Izuku was doing. Trying to start one, he replied. I want it to be a culture club where students gather to share movies, music, and books. Then we talk about it and share out thoughts. That sounds like fun, Set said. I was expecting you to do some sort of fight club. The first rule of Fight Club, Izuku said in a mock-serious tone. To everyone's surprise, it was Kanoko who responded. You do not talk about Fight Club. Everyone was in shock. The Grand Uno champion shrugged and smiled. What? My grandpa loves that movie. Izuku laughed. Yay, which is my plan for a club. I need to get some initial signatures and find a teacher to be our advisor. But you're right, Set. I did look into a combat club, but I have spent my whole life fighting and learning to fight. It's not as if the school will keep teaching us, and recently, I have been exposed to a whole different part of life, and I want to try to enjoy it as much as I can. So, you're creating a club? She replied. Exactly. If any of you are interested, let me know, he said with a smile. Pony and Ryuko blushed as if he was talking about them. Little did they know he was. Ryuko immediately floated a pen over to herself and signed up, followed by Pony. Set sat there thinking about it and also decided to sign her name. She looked over at Itsuka. What? You must admit that sounds like fun except for the reading part. I get to hang out and call it club activities. You going to sign up? I don't know. I will think about it. It does sound like something fun to look forward to after the crap sandwich of the first week, and who knows how the rest of it will go. After class, as the workout group was stretching and loosening up, Izuku mentioned the club to his friends from 1A. Kyoka practically yelled yes, much to her embarrassment. Toru thought it sounded like fun, and even Momo said she would consider it. Today Kyoka and Toru were working with Izuku on the quirk tests. Because their quirks didn't naturally give them an advantage in most trials, they focused on technique and tests. Momo and Pony were working on their hand-to-hand combat under the watchful eye of Hurtful, who was walking them through some of his family's martial arts techniques. The entire group decided to end the exercise with a run which was definitely in Pony's favor. They agreed that they would focus all their remaining sessions in just the quirk assessment testing to improve the girls' score. Toru and Kyoko were nervous but found hope in seeing that they had already improved. Kyoko was finding it hard to concentrate as the proximity was proving distracting. Izuku was struggling, having to be pressed up close to both girls to adjust forms. The next day when class started, Vlad-sensei called the course to attention before he turned to the door and called for someone to enter. The class watched as the girl who had attacked Tetsu and thrown acid at Midoriya entered, followed by the girl who smacked Itsuka. The second girl stepped forward and bowed deeply. "I am Ochako Uraraka, and I want to apologize to the entire class for my actions in the lunchroom, especially to you, Itsuka Kendo. I had no right to smack you. I don't even know why I did it. I was embarrassed and humiliated for my actions during that day. Izuku Midoriya, I also would like to offer my apologies for even being part of the fight. You stepped forward and saved me during the entrance exam, and I never even had a chance to thank you properly or tell you how excited I was to see that you made it. I humbly ask for everyone's forgiveness and the opportunity to show you the type of person I am and the hero I hope to be one day." The pink girl stepped forward, fighting back tears, and bowed profoundly. "I am Mina Ashido, and I am just an idiot. I should have stopped Aijiro from doing anything after the fight started. Instead, I jumped on Tetsu's back like an idiot and fired off my acid at you, Izuku Midori. I reacted instead of acting properly and how a student at UA should. I have no words to justify my actions. All I can do is beg for your forgiveness." She sank to her knees and bowed her head to the ground. The class turned and looked at the affected students. Itsuka got up first, followed by Tetsu. Itsuka walked over to Ochako. "I forgive you. We all could have handled that day better, me included. I don't know you, but as a class member has said before, everyone deserves a second chance but not a third." Tetsu walked over and knelt before Mina. "Hey, it's okay. I am guessing that dude is your friend, and you were just reacting. I get it, but try to see what's happening before jumping in next time. Your friend was in the wrong in a big way. You seem like a good person. Do better." "All right." Mina looked at him gratefully as she wiped a stray tear. Ochako doing the same to Itsuka. They both stepped aside and up walked Izuku. "Stand up, please," he said to Mina, who almost reluctantly did so. "Ochako, you have nothing to seek forgiveness from me for. Itsuka forgave you, and that is who needed to do it. I want to get to know you better, and I hope we can put all this behind us and maybe be friends. I am glad you also made it in. I wish our reunion would have been under different circumstances." Ochako managed a smile and nodded her head. "I would like that too." "Mina, you threw acid at me that melted a table. Do you even realize the damage you could have caused had I not ducked out of the way? I don't know you either, but Toru speaks highly about you, and I can see the contrition on your face and the emotion in your words. I will give you a second chance. I am so sorry, Midoriya. I promise you won't regret it," she said. The two offered their apologies to the class again as they made their exit. Next in walked Aijiro. He stood at the front of the class and bowed. "Sorry for escalating an incident that should not have grown to the proportions that it did. I was dumb and not thinking. I ask for your forgiveness and the opportunity to put right what went wrong that day and to ensure we can all work together to better our future as pro-heroes. Sorry for attacking you, Midoriya." Izuku looked at Aijiro and could see the false sincerity. He didn't apologize for his role, and Izuku was sure that Aijiro still supported Bakugo's actions. With a shrug, Izuku responded, "That works for me." As much as he wanted to put the whole thing behind him, he knew it wasn't over yet. But those out of the way, they continued with their day. Izuku devoured his lunch before stepping away to try and meet with a few teachers about sponsoring the new club he was looking to form. It was on his way that he bumped into Ida, who asked if they could meet after detention. Izuku, sensed not malicious intent, agreed to head to the faculty area. Thankfully, he managed to find Midnight, who had been his counselor since the incident in the infirmary. Being to avoid an encounter with Aizawa as the man was asleep was in both parties' interests. Professor Midnight sat, listened to his proposal, and looked over his application, a slight grin on her face. UA had some clubs, but most students didn't look for them. They mainly consisted of future leaders and other such things, or clubs that solely seemed to focus on quirks. On the other hand, this one focused on culture and experiencing new things with other students. In her opinion, everyone has a passion or something they had a fandom for, and sharing those with others wasn't done enough. Midnight was pleasantly surprised that Izuku was attempting to form the club, as his attention had been mono-focused on fighting and surviving due to their conversations. But something had changed after what had been described to her as a friend's trip to the mall. She would make sure to ask more in their next session. "I will be your group's advisor," she said, looking at the hopeful teen. "Everything must also be submitted to me, and I will provide things for the group to look at and read. All groups must do some school service and will also have to host and run a booth during the culture festival and submit something for the festival. I will file this and notify you when I have a room assignment." She took the papers and sent Izuku on his way. It was the class after lunch that had them all excited. It was their heroics, and it was their first class with all might. After hearing from Ibara and Manga about their missed lesson, all the other students were excited to get into it. True to form, the number one hero entered with a booming voice and dressed to impress in his Silver Age costume, revealing the metal cases that held their hero costumes and calling for them to get to the training ground Delta. The class did their best to contain their excitement as they grabbed the cases and headed off. With the course already aware and having dealt with the issue of Izuku's scars, it wasn't such an ordeal this time, and they were able to get changed quickly. Izuku dressed with a slight melancholic look in his eyes. The costume resembled an ensemble that his master once had. Izuku stood in black armored and reinforced pants, a matching titanium weave compression shirt, and a dark green leather armored vest. The cloak was a matching dark green with a hood. The cover was armored and reinforced to protect it from fire, bullets, knives, and other bladed weapons. He left the respirator hanging around his neck, securing a staff of what appeared to be black walnut with a twisted knob at one end and a sharpened blade at the other. Izuku felt his hand linger on his former master's favorite weapon. A few hidden blades and some not so secret. Then he outstretched his hand, and the black sword appeared. Securing it, he made his way out of the locker room. Ryuko and Pony spotted him first. As he exited, "Thou looks like a most formidable warrior of the days long ago. Izuku, I like the cloak. Perchance do you happen to look favorably upon my choices as well?" Ryuko asked. "Yes, I like the fur trim at the collar, and the boots best suit you, Ryuko. And yours is also cool, Pony. It matches your personality and quirk," Izuku said, complimenting the girls before he turned and saw Huryu approaching. "Dude, you look cool. Are you ready for this?" "Unlike you others, I was born ready," he said with a false mocking tone, causing Izuku and Pony to laugh and Ryuko to hide her smile behind her arm. "If only you all wanted to proceed into battle looking so," Naito was saying, moving his hand in a circular motion. "Barbaric, when of course, elegance is what is called for." Shihai, also dressed in all black, walked over and slapped Izuku on the shoulder. "Good color choices." Eventually, they were all just gathered together, complimenting each other's costumes. Set was about to try and prank Izuku by pulling the sword when he made her main body eep as he grabbed her hand that was floating over. "I wouldn't do it," Set. "It doesn't like being touched." Itsuka, who was talking with Yui and Kanoko, looked over as Set was blushing slightly. Looking past her, she saw Izuku had captured the lizard splitter's hand and was lightly and suggestively stroking Set's palm. One of the few times in Itsuka's life, she saw Set tap out in the middle of a tease and ask for her hand back. All Might stepped emerged, calling everyone back to attention before giving them the rundown in their 2v2 battles, hero, villains, bomb, etc. He expected a flurry of questions and concerns as he had received from Wana, but instead was greeted with yes, SENSEI. They all stepped forward and drew their lots. Team A, Yosuo Uwais and Jiroda Shishida versus Team F, Yui Kodai and Satsuna Takage. Team B, Senkaibara and Nyaranjiki Shota versus Team G, Kanoko Komori and Manga Fukadashi. Team C, Tagaru Kamakiri and Pony Tsunotori versus Team H, Izuku Midoriya and Ryuko Yanagi. Team D, Shihai Kiwaro and Kosai Tsuburaba versus Team I, Ibara Shizaki and Juzo Honuki. Team E, Itsuka Kendo and Tetsutetsu versus Team J, Naito Monoma and Huryu Rin. Match 1. Yui and Satsuna walked into the building. Moving to the area with the bomb, Satsuna seemed to be talking as Yui was quiet, but they saw a wicked grin spread across the girl's face, and Satsuna threw her head back and cackled loudly. Uwais and Jiroda decided to take the head-on approach. Jiroda went beast mode, ripped some handrails off, and passed them back for Uwais to weld together as an improvised weapon. Jiroda began to surrender to the animal side and raced off ahead. As he burst into the room where the girls were, he had no concern with the bomb, choosing instead to attack Yui, who was standing in the center. Uwais chased after his teammate and burst into the room. Suddenly, Yui smiled and placed her fingertips together. Uwais immediately felt a moment of dread as the room was completely bare, though it did not stay that way for long, as office furniture, oil barrels, and crates appeared above them and came crashing down with thunderous force. Uwais attempted to find shelter only to find the door locked. In the chaos, he felt his arms wrenched behind his back as he tried to free himself from the rubble, and the capture tape slipped into place. All Might announced his capture, and he fell to the ground in defeat. Jiroda was able to free himself and began to throw the rubble around wildly. He couldn't locate Yui, and when a vial collided with his face, he roared at the liquid as the smell of jasmine invaded his nose, rendering his sense of smell useless. Due to the effect of his quirk, he just rampaged wildly till time ran out. Yui emerged from a room on the first floor where she had sought shelter, and the set reassembled herself, floating the bomb down from the rafters. After the teams regrouped in the observation room, Set and Yui received praise for their well-crafted plan and successful execution. Set was named the MVP for her exceptional ability to develop the strategy and flawlessly utilize her classmates' quirk. It was imposing, Match 2. This match was more of a demolition derby, with Sen and Nirn just running at their opposition with devastating effects. Just when it looked like Kanoko and Manga were on the verge of defeat, the room covered in dust exploded into an assault of mushrooms. Kanoko had hidden her spores all over the room, and now, with them not only airborne but in the respiratory system of their opponents, they began to choke and panic as their breath was being denied them. Manga then dropped the boom on them, literally and figuratively, when he rushed to try and capture them, though Nirn twin impact exploded, knocking him and Manga unconscious. Now, hero, either these surrender or my precious spores will make their way to your brain where you will become my servant for life. Ha 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 ha. Kanoko threw her head back and laughed manically. Can she do that? Naito asked from the safety of the observation room. Dude, Kanoko is kind of scary, Izuku said. And kinda hot, Toguro said much louder than he intended, prompting the class to turn and stare at the blade creator. He blushed furiously as he realized why they were staring at him. If any one of you say something, I will effing cut you, he yelled. Now sleep, hero. When you awake, it will all be okay. Today the city, tomorrow the world, Kanoko said menacingly. Most of the boys in the observation room had to agree. They couldn't understand it, but it was pretty hot. With the last breath, Sen attacked Kanoko, sending the girl flying back. Unfortunately, the lack of oxygen caught up, and he passed out. Kanoko was named MVP. And All Might pulled her aside to talk to her about the mind control thing and came back looking pale and writing furiously on the notepad. Match 3. Do not take your defeat to heart, my friends, Pony said as they made their way out of the observation room. I will not lose, she said, but the statement seemed to be directed more toward Ryuko. Neither will I, dear Pony, but fret not when Izuku celebrates our victory. Later I will send you a photo, Ryuko responded. Yumi fight, Toguro said, pointing at Izuku. Oh, yay, Toguro. Bring your best blade. I already have mine, Izuku retorted, patting his sword handle as they hit the cityscape. Good luck, Pony. You as well, Izuku. The girl replied with a smile. Riko smirked at Pony. Where no one else could see, she latched onto Izuku's arm, causing the quirkless boy to freeze momentarily as two lovely, round squishy orbs pressed around his arm. Come, Izuku. Let us depart and form our plans for victory. Sure, Riko, Izuku managed as the girl pulled him into the building. At beach, Pony muttered in English. What? Toguro said. Nothing. I do not want to lose this match. Do you understand? Pony said with a fierce competitive tone. Izuku and Riko, what do you believe should be our plan, dear Izuku? I think they will come for us after that exchange, but I don't know if Pony's horns would count as her touching the bomb, so I believe we should hide it from sight just in case. We should see if we can separate them from tagging team them. I can immobilize Pony if you can capture her. Toguro might be too large for me to do the same. But if I draw him in, you can use the capture tape to take him out of the fight. I don't know if he can cut it off. But taking out Pony first will give us the advantage, at least in numbers. If all else fails, we can probably goad them into direct combat and see if we can obtain victory that way. I can work with that, try to separate and capture, or 1v1, and if we can secure victory, we help our teammate, Izuku said. Toguro and Pony. We go in and kick their asses, Toguro said. Yes, but the backup plan is good. Or I attack Izuku, and you deal with Riko. Pony offered. Can you handle Izuku? I do not know, we have trained together a lot. And he is very adept in the training room. But I have not engaged in much combat with him, Pony replied. Riko is going to be the difficult one with her quirk. She may be able to immobilize you, so we should focus on her first before taking out Izuku. I can beat him, so we don't have to worry, he said confidently. When the buzzer sounded, Toguro made their entrance. Being careful to avoid ambush, Riko and Izuku would launch range attacks from around corners, thanks to Riko's quirk. Pony fired her horns in retaliation, but the corridors made it hard for her to control them. Pony and Toguro were making their way down a corridor when suddenly a door flew open, and Pony was yanked inside violently. The door slammed shut, leaving Toguro separated from his teammate as he heard a loud crash on the other side of the door like a large cabinet crashing against it. Pony rolled to her feet as Izuku launched a kick into her side. She gasped for breath but immediately brought her arm down to trap his leg to deliver a potent counterkick. Pony's kicks were devastating in part to her quirk. Izuku was thankful for the body armor as he was positive it would have resulted in broken ribs without it. As Izuku tumbled away, Pony fired her horns, hoping to disable him, but she saw a wicked glow around them and sent them crashing into a wall instead. She felt her body stiffen as the glow wrapped around her as Izuku speared her in the gut with his shoulder, driving more air from her lungs. She struggled as best she could but felt her arms pressed behind her back. She could see a blade tear through the door as Toguro attempted to cut his way in. Quickly she fired her horns at Riko, forcing the girl to focus on the projectiles, meaning she could no longer hold Pony in place. As Izuku was driving her to the ground, she threw her arm over his head, wrapping around his neck as she pulled her legs up and around his waist, hoping to catch him in a guillotine choke. Izuku immediately moved to counter her attempt to bring her other arm in to complete the submission as he took his other arm and grabbed at the nerve cluster in the lumbar and sacral plexuses, which broke her leg lock and allowed him to take them out and pull his head free. Pony's arms were immediately removed above her head in a suggestive pose that caused them to blush momentarily as the capture tape wrapped around Pony's wrists, and her capture was called out. Izuku immediately scrambled off the girl as the top of the door was cut away. "You know what to do, Riko," Izuku called out, and she braced herself and pulled the cabinet away as Tagaru burst in to get met by a drop kick from Izuku, sending him back into the hall. Tagaru rolled with the kick and came to his feet, two blades forming from his hands. "Draw your blade so you may be measured." Izuku smirked, hoping to goad his classmate. He drew the staff. "You must prove worthy of my blade, hero, as I am now unimpressed," Izuku replied, doing his best to sound superior. "Then prepare for new lessons to be carved upon your body so you remember me." Tagaru bit back as he rushed forward. Izuku tossed his reinforced cloak towards his attacker, causing a momentary distraction that he used to strike at Tagaru's chest with a thrust. Tagaru was able to quickly counter back with a horizontal swing that forced Izuku to step back as Tagaru pirouetted to close the distance with another swing of his blades as he went into attack mode. His dual wielding was off-balanced. Izuku noticed, having seen a master of it for many years up close and personal. Izuku let him press his attack till he saw the opening he knew was coming from the boy's swings. He then began to push back, the sharp edge of the staff providing point cuts to drive Tagaru back as he faltered. Riko used the distraction to grab Izuku's discarded cloak and whip it out to tangle Tagaru's legs, sending the boy crashing back. Izuku sprang forward and drove the pointed end of the staff down, stopping inches from Tagaru's throat as All Might screamed out a warning. Tagaru looked up at Izuku and saw no killing intent from his classmate. He knew that Izuku was in complete control. "You're dead," was all Izuku said. "I yield," Tagaru spat out. Izuku pulled the staff back and offered his hand. Tagaru reluctantly took it as he got to his feet. "You weren't pressed, were you?" "A little. But I could tell you were off balance while dual wielding and knew you would give me an opening and what I had to do to force that. Once we got you onto the defensive, you had forgotten about Riko, and that was the plan," Izuku said. "My teacher was an expert at that technique, dual wielding. If you like, I can give you some pointers with your quirk. I can only imagine how great you could be at it." "Nice pirouette, BTW. Dance class, my mom made me," he said as Pony and Riko rejoined them in the hallway. "Don't feel too bad. I had to learn some ballet." The girls stopped and giggled. "But it requires incredible balance. And that shit is hard." As Pony and Tagaru walked ahead of Riko and Izuku, talking about the match, Ryuko quickly pulled Izuku into a room. She blocked the cameras and rose and kissed him. He tenderly returned the kiss. That was for the aquarium. She threw her arms around his neck and kissed him with much more fire. That was today. With a smirk, she walked away, leaving Izuku with a dazed and goofy look. In the observation room, though she protested, Ryuko was named MVP as it was pointed out that Izuku had a plan, but I would not have worked without her in her execution. Thankfully, nobody seemed to notice the far-off look in Izuku when he walked in, and after he had a quick talk about All Might and weapon safety for some reason, it was enough for him to regain his composure. Match 4. Shihai and Kosai were able to work out a solid plan, but one that left them snatching victory with a mere second left on the clock. Kosai would knock out lights to give Shihai more areas to move, but Ibara's vents and Juzo's softening became a slog in every aspect of the word. Shihai desperately struggled against Ibara's vines. Her ability to have them attack from so many angles really had him on the ropes, but he was also able at times to drive her back due to being immobile while attacking. And the other two were a game of cat and mouse. In the end, Kosai managed to lay a fingertip on the bomb to give his team the win. Kosai was MVP for securing the win, as both teams had flawlessly put their plans into motion. Match 5. Huryu would harass and force Itsuka and Tetsu to take cover and methodically make their way through the building. When Tetsu finally rushed forward, Nito stepped forward and touched the ground, trapping him in the ground with Juzo's quirk. For Itsuka, it was when his hair turned into vines and the assault from Huryu that was her undoing. When Huryu slapped the capture tape on her, she hung her head in defeat. "That was some bullshit. Nito, how did you copy their quirks?" Itsuka said. "I asked. All Might allowed it as I was a villain in this scenario. I would have come in prepared for what heroes I would know that would be in the area due to patrol routes, etc. I don't care. Can you get me unstuck now?" yelled Tetsu. Naito was MVP. Detention. For Class 1B's Detention, they reviewed the footage with their teacher from the combat training as he gave them pointers and tips. Class 1A had to draft a report on the significance of Raven's Law and its application in the modern world. Izuku and Ida. Izuku met the speedster of Class 1A in a private room as the classes emptied from detention. Ida bowed. I apologize for kicking you and for not having a better handle on those of my class that not only attacked you but those who escalated the brawl to levels it should have never risen to. Honestly, Ida, you have no reason to apologize. There was no way you could have known that Bakugo was going to attack another student, despite his sunny disposition randomly. And I did punch you first. Yes, but I would have reacted the same way you did due to the information you had due to the actions of my class. I find it not only admirable that you are in the hero course as a quirkless student, you also placed first in the entrance exam. I was there and acted terribly to you, and you showed me that there was more to the exam with your actions to save your Araka. You reminded me and showed me what it means to be a hero. I wanted to find you and thank you for that. So, if you would allow me now, thank you. There is no need to thank me. Ida, if you genuinely want to thank me, let us ensure our two classes' joint training goes off without conflict. Yes, let us do that. I would like to get to know you better, Izuku. You seem to be interesting. You seem rather nice yourself, Ida, and you pack a mean kick. Ida forced an envelope into his hand. And as his family insisted, Izuku tried to protest, but he could see this was important to Ida, so he just put it into his pocket as they exited the room. Hey, you wouldn't be related to Ingenium by any chance, would you? Izuku asked. A huge smile broke out on Ida's face. He is my brother. I am very proud of him. 1B stood across from 1A, the air thick with mistrust. Izuku stepped forward, as did Momo. I was thinking maybe we could have one member of each class sit next to another. It may not be the best idea, but we must break the tension somehow. So should we just call people out randomly or see if someone volunteers? Itsuka said. Ochako, would you care to sit with me? The gravity girl took a deep breath. If that's okay, I would like to get to know you better. The two boarded the bus, soon Tsu and Ryuko, followed by Pony and Kyoka. The girls of each class soon followed, pairing up. Izuku smiled as the process was taking place. Glad to see the girls aren't holding a grudge, he said with a smile at Momo. We girls are more mature, naturally, Momo said with a dramatic hair flip and giggle. Well, someone has to be. Your class costumes all look pretty cool. I like yours too, Momo. Yes, it is kind of new. My other was a little more revealing due to the nature of my quirk, but after my first class with All Might, he directed me and tore her to the lab where we were able to get fitted for Geno fabric, she said, pointing to the addition of white armored legging and white tank top. A whole new costume is being constructed, but that takes time. They looked back at the class and saw just the boys. So they assigned them together to get them on the bus. Due to mismatched numbers, Izuku took the solo seat near his friends from both classes as the bus rumbled off to their joint training exercise. The girls were the first to fall into any real conversation, while some of the boys who weren't part of the stupid conspiracies theory started talking with their 1B brothers about how classes were treating them. When the topic of Detention was brought up, that seemed to bring all the classes together, as 1A had spent their time writing reports and 1B had done some training and even played some games. The story of the legendary Uno tournament brought out laughs and cheers at the retelling. Soon the conversation shifted to their hero outfits and standard school stuff. When they stepped off, it seemed that most of the tension was gone between the classes, with the hostilities still focused on Izuku, which he didn't mind. Before them, they all paused as they took in the sight of the massive facility before them, the USJ, unforeseen simulation joint. The imposing structure loomed before them. Such an enormous facility built on campus just added to the reminder that they were at the top hero school in the nation and possibly the world. Kyoka walked over and shoulder bumped him. Don't sweat it, Izuku. Are we still on for tomorrow? She said, twirling a jack around her finger. Yay, I am looking forward to it. Honestly, I am pretty excited. I like your hero outfit, Kyoka. It fits your vibe, he said, not noticing her blush. Cool, so am I, she replied. Yours is pretty dope as well, it seems to suit you. While her blush went unnoticed, it did not but some of her classmates, or Ryuko and Pony. Dude, what the F is Gyro getting all chummy with that douchebag for? Denki said. Yay, doesn't he have his own classmates to hit on? He has been flirty with Toru and Momo. Didn't Sue go to the mall with him? Look, boys, just calm down, Ijiro said, walking up behind them. Trust me, he is going to get his, and then Bakubro will be back with us. Yay, well, don't wait too long. Ochako and Ida are talking to that a hole now, Siro said, pointing to enlarging group around Izuku. Ochako blushed as she explained the mishap with her costume design, but broke into a smile as she received reassurance that it looked good on her. Any further conversation was cut short when the doors opened, and their homeroom teachers and the renowned rescue hero 13 stepped out. Ochako lit up like a Christmas tree as she started gushing around her group about the rescue hero. 13 stepped forward, welcoming them to the USJ, and explained that today's exercise's premise was teamwork and quirk control. They learned to use their quirks to aid rescue operations even if they felt ill-suited. She drove this point home when she demonstrated her quirk black hole in a pile of rubble nearby, which did its job perfectly. Eraserhead stepped forward next. I don't want any funny business today or any repeat of the cafeteria from a week ago. Any shenanigans will result in strict and immediate disciplinary actions. Look, children, I understand that there are hard feelings and lingering misunderstandings. I will not stand here and tell you that you all need to be friends or even need to like each other. But you do need to work together and put aside those differences for the greater good. Not only will you be called upon to put your lives in each other's hands, but there will be innocent civilians whose lives are in your hands. I promise you right now that should you let such things as harsh feelings between you lead to their preventable death, I will do everything I can to see you stripped of your licenses and punished to the fullest extent of the law if possible. You all came here to be heroes, each with your motivation and beliefs, but at the core of all, it is protecting the innocent people of our world. Do not let the dreams that have carried you this far be tarnished because you don't like someone's quirk or lack thereof. Be better, be heroes. Yes, SENSEI. 1B responded, and so did a few members of 1A. Kyoka leaned towards Izuku. Does he normally speak like that? He does, Izuku said with admiration. First day Nito freaked some when he found out I didn't have a quirk. Vlad-sensei came in and laid some hard truths on us, and we could squash it quickly and move on. I am glad he is my homeroom teacher rather than the alternative. No shit, I feel like I am ready to take on anything right now, she responded. That was our teacher's normal speech. Don't mess up, or I will expel you. You know we haven't had a single basic combat course yet. The only kind we have had is what we did with you. That seems terrible on so many levels, Izuku responded, smirking at her. But you already knew how to throw a pretty good punch. It must come with the attitude. Kyoka instinctively punched him in the shoulder. Damn right, don't make me give you a fresh one, she said, turning away to hide her smile. Good punch, but I like your smile even better, he said, following the group, leaving Kyoka sputtering and turning red. Toru laughed, placing a hand on her friend's shoulders, guiding her after the group. He won that round. Entering the massive doors, students commented on the interior and all the training zones around them. As they were doing so, Nito was looking over the railing when the lights flickered, and he saw a portal open, and people that looked like they didn't belong began to spill out. Vlad-sensei, please tell me this is part of the training, he said, stepping back. The two homeroom teachers looked down as another portal opened, and out stepped a slim man with pale skin, tinged. He was wearing plain red sneakers, black pants that exposed his ankles, and a matching long-sleeved V-neck shirt. Covering his arms and shoulders were what appeared to be hands. A hand was attached to his face, acting as a mask. The raid boss seems to be missing Kurogiri. He was followed by two others, a man whose entire body is made out of a dark purple mist, save for his eyes, which are glowing yellow. He wore an exquisite suit with a tie and had a metal brace from around his collarbone to just below his eyes. According to our information, he was to be here, Kurogiri responded. The third was even more bizarre. It was a giant, black humanoid monster with a very muscular body with many scars. His brain is exposed on the top of his head while his large eyes surround it. He has a beak-like mouth with an array of sharp teeth. It only wore beige pants and metal knee pads designed to emulate skulls. His feet and torso are left bare. Greetings, Trash. I am Shigaraki, the leader of the League of Villains, and we are here today to end all might and bring about change in this world where quirks are deemed villainous or unuseful. Seeing how he has not shown up for our little revolution, we will have to make do with all of you, the man with the hands called out in a raspy voice. It seems we need to summon him to his death party. May your wails, cries, and the silence from your death ascend to the sky and summon the symbol of peace. Worry not, your end will serve the greater good. End them all. No, it is not. 13, get the kids out of here, he called. 1B, follow 13 now. Yes, SENSEI. His class responded. He could see from the looks on their face that they wanted to go against his orders. He saw Tagaru, Izuku, Jiroda, and even Yui hesitate for a second. Yei Arazu, Gyro, get the class out of here, Eraserhead shouted. Sensei, there are too many of them for you to fight with your quirk. Ijiro called out. Yei, Sensei, let us fight. We aren't scared like the others, Denki joined in. No hero is just a one-trick pony. Kirishima, now get with the others, or you are expelled, Eraserhead said as he leaped over the railing, followed by Vlad King. The combined class moved towards the exit, the madman's words still lingering in their brains. These villains had not only come to end All Might but them as well. Many understood that life and death would be part of their world once they graduated, but not in the second week of school. As they were following 13 toward the exit, suddenly, they were surrounded by the dark mist that had heralded the arrival of their attackers. The one known as Kurogiri emerged like a horror movie monster from a portal. You should not run. After all, the young master has gone through great trouble to prepare such delights for all of you. Now be scattered like the dust in the wind and know that your deaths will bring about a better tomorrow, he said as the mist began to flow from his hand. No, you don't, villain, 13 called out her hand, shooting out the caps on her fingers that controlled her powerful quirk, opening and unleashing it at the villain. Little did she know she was playing right into the villain's trap as a second portal opened behind the hero, redirecting her quirk back at her. 13 screamed as the back of her suit was torn open, flesh ripped from her body, and she fell to her knees. Airo leaped forward with a wild haymaker as Tagaru came in from the other side, attempting to stab at the mist villain. Their blows passed harmlessly through Kurogiri. "So anxious to die, let me accommodate you foolish children," he said, a portal swallowing the two boys. Ryuko grabbed 13. "Momo, we need medical supplies. Ibara, see if you can restrain him. There has to be a body somewhere under there." Izuku called out. The girls sprang into action as Sen moved forward, activating his quirk and stripping the mist away, hoping to reveal the body of their target. "He has a heartbeat," Kyoko called out. "Let us see if he withstand my awesome twinkling," Yuga called out as his naval laser fired. Kurogiri was far from done using the portal to redirect the shot at Sen, forcing the boy and a few others to duck. Then portals appeared under many of their feet, causing them to fall in, and they pulled away from their classmates. Ruins zone. Airo fell above the ruins. Reaching out, he hardened his hand, attempting to slow his descent by digging into the wall above the alley. As he neared the ground, he released the wall, shifting to his legs to absorb some of the impact. Quickly, he scanned the area when the sound of metal on brick drew his attention around the corner. Rushing over to investigate, he saw Tagaru pushing off the wall and dive-bombing what appeared to be a villain dressed in rags. It was then that Airo saw this thing emerge from a dumpster. As it did, he saw the metal from the can stick to the creature like some makeshift armor. The mass locked eyes with Airo and bellowed something, but it was garbled, like trying to talk with a mouth of wet peanut butter, but words were not necessary as it charged at the boy. Its massive hand crashed in a thunderous arc, hoping to crush Airo in one smash. Tagaru impacted the ragman and immediately regretted it as a green noxious gas erupted. He managed not to vomit as he rolled off and tried to move away, his eyes stinging from the stench. Airo had unknowingly leaped back to avid his attacker into the noxious gas. His eyes watered as he stumbled farther back, fighting back the vomit. Airo managed to get his guard up in time as the metal fist crashed into him, sending him tumbling out of the alley. Tagaru kicked off the wall to bypass the cloud that seemed to form a stable ring around Ragman. He rushed towards Airo as the boy lost his battle with the noxious stench and vomited into the street. Tagaru yanked him to his feet as their attackers shambled out of the alley. He noticed that the ragman was keeping his distance from the armored blob. What caught his attention was when he saw a wisp of smoke stick to the blob. The blob is avoiding getting too close to Mr. Stinky. "We need to force them somehow together," Tagaru whispered. "You must do it, as we can't risk you getting stuck. Can you handle that?" Airo nodded, quickly scanning the area around. He noticed some broken pieces of wood. It wouldn't keep him entirely out of the cloud, but it would at least add some distance. Grabbing a decent-sized rock, he hurled it, forcing the fog to dodge out of the way as Tagaru rushed in the opposite direction to pull the blob's attention to him. Shipwreck zone. Tetsu grunted as the shark villain's mouth came collapsing around his midsection as it was attempting to swallow his feet first. Thankfully, he had seen him coming and activated his quirk, steel waiting for the last possible second. The clank surprised his attacker but didn't stop him from trying to bite through. Tetsu knew he couldn't stay like this for long, and he had to free himself and make it to the surface, his lungs already crying out for air. He grit his teeth and reaches out, finding the villain's eyes, viciously. He dug his fingers into the black orbs. Even underwater, he could hear the thing scream. It released him and yanked away, leaving one of its eyes behind on Tetsu's hand. With no time to contemplate it, he released his quirk and kicked his way to the surface. As he broke the surface, he looked around frantically, where he saw the large boat floating in the middle of the zone. He then saw Huryu, whose hand was inside another villain's mouth. Huryu screamed as the rows of sharp teeth collapsed around his arm, piercing his scales like his other cohort. This small group of 3 villains had swarmed Huryu when he splashed down. Their diminutive stature of 3 had frozen his initial reaction to attack, believing them to be children. But his hesitation ceased when their faces distorted with murderous intent and bore rows of razor-sharp teeth. They seemed to have some piranha quirk as they came at him. His scales had afforded him some protection, but their needle-like teeth had found their way through, having dealt with the other 2, forcing one to retreat and the other possibly dead. He was left with what he thought to be the leader. It had dodged his most recent attack with its much more agile state of the fight occurring in the water, leading them to the current state. As the villain shook its head from side to side, attempting to saw off the limb, Huryu focused and fired his scales with everything he had. Huryu suppressed his emotion as he saw some of the scales emerge from the back of the thing's head. Its jaw went slack as he pried the thing off him. A shout from behind. He saw Tetsu point toward the boat, and the 2 began to swim as fast as they could. Suddenly, a green-haired girl appeared at the railing. The 2 boys recognized her as the Tsu for Class 1A. She dived off the edge as the Denki appeared behind her, yelling to be careful. "Grab Huryu first," He is injured, Tetsu yelled, swimming with all his might. Sue nodded, grabbing Huryu and firing her tongue to grapple the railing and pull them out before she returned, doing the same for Tetsu but not before delivering a powerful kick to the villain in hot pursuit. The two boys lay panting on the deck. Huryu tore some fabric from his costume to make improvised bandages, and Tetsu and Sue moved to help while Denki seemed conflicted. Sue noticed after making sure the boys had everything in hand. She walked over and roughly yanked his arm, pulling him off to the side. "What the hell is your problem?" she hissed. "Nothing. I wasn't expecting to see 1B." He replied. "Are you effing kidding me, Kiro?" she said, her eyes widening in shock. "You hesitated to help someone because of some stupid grudge. Either get your head out of your ass or expect to be reported to staff." Bakugo was terrible despite what every headcanon Kirishima has. "Are you here to be a hero or in a hole? Let me know so I can start watching my back around you." Denki wanted to retort, but she walked away. Landslide zone. As Shoto fell, he created an ice slide to slow his descent. Rolling to his feet, he looked around as villains emerged from their hiding spots. With a smirk, he slammed his foot into the ground, encasing them all in ice. "Amateurs, now tell me about this plan to end All Might before hypothermia sets in, and you start losing your extremities," he said. Suddenly a fist of fire erupted from around a corner. Shoto barely managed to get an ice wall up. The blow still sent him stumbling back. Toru screamed as she emerged from the portal, plummeting to what was sure to be intense pain when the Nido flew up and caught her in his arms. She looked, and it said it looked like Bondo had thrown him. They impacted roughly. "Sorry for the rough catch, but hold on, I need to turn off this quirk, or we are going to keep rising," he said as he placed his fingers together like Ochako, and they began to descend. "Just hold on, I will reactivate it before we impact." She held on tight as his arm was around her waist. She was highly thankful for the clothing All Might had helped get so that all her essential bits were at least covered. She looked to the side and saw ice erupt everywhere. That must be Shoto. They landed slightly roughly as Bondo slid down the hill to join them. "Good catch, Monoma," the glue user said. "Nice throw, Bondo," he replied, setting Toru on her feet as they saw fire and ice erupting on the other side of their mountain. "That has to be Shoto," Toru said. "We need to help him." "Of course, madam, that is what heroes do," Nido replied as they dashed off. Mountain zone. Izuku's vision returned with him falling from the sky towards some jagged-looking rocks. Scanning his surround, he saw ice erupting just a short distance from where they were. He felt a hand grab his vest roughly and slow his descent. Looking back, he saw Setsuna's arm. They then noticed her limbs shooting off everywhere, holding Momo and Kyoka and saving them from falling to serious harm. Setsuna was straining, holding them all. Most of her body was with Izuku while an arm and few legs had flown off to catch the girls from 1A. All their landings were rough but much softer than they would have been otherwise. She pulled her limbs to herself and fell back on her but breathing heavily. "Great job, Set. You okay?" Izuku said. "Yay, I just need a minute. Grabbing and holding all of you was a lot," she replied. "Thank you for catching us," Momo said, looking around as a bow staff formed in her hand. "Yay, thanks for the save," Kyoka said as she plunged one of her jacks into the ground and extended the other like a boom mic. Closing her eyes, "There are about 15 of them around the bend. They are setting up an ambush. I think some of the voices are too muffled for me to hear. Momo, can I get a baton or something?" Momo nodded and created an eskrima stick, looking at Setsuna. "Baseball bat, please." "Did Izuku teach you how to use those?" asked Kyoka. "Some, but it's better than nothing in case they get in close," Kyoka said with a smile. Izuku smiled as he drew his staff. "An ambush only works because of the element of surprise. I say you let me spring their trap. Momo and Kyoka, you come in behind me. Set, can you come in up and over?" "Yeah, I got you, Izu," she said, smiling and taking a swing with her bat. "Then let's go introduce ourselves," he said. Windstorm zone. Dark shadow sprang forth, catching the other students after it had gotten Fumi to the ground safely. Koji and Jiroda put some strain on the quirk, but it could handle Yui easily. Once all four of them were together, Fumi spoke. "It seems that the forces of evil have sprung a most heinous of traps this day. We must work together to see victory snatched from the jaws of defeat." "I agree," Jiroda said, strangely put, but well put nonetheless. Yui just nodded, as did Koji. As they emerged from the shelter of the raging wind, if it wasn't for a warning from Dark Shadow that sent the group diving in opposite directions when a bolt of lightning struck the ground where they were. They looked, and standing on an opposing rooftop, they saw a villain slap its hands together. As he pulled them apart, they saw another lightning bolt forming in their hands. From the streets around them, they saw more villains emerge. "It appears that we are going to have to fight our way out," Jiroda said as he removed his glasses, putting them in a case on his belt. "Battle!" Yui screamed. Koji flinched. Fire zone. Sato rolled to the side, avoiding an animated fire dragon as it swooped down. Seeing it circle high into the air, he pushed off in a sprinter's stance, kicking off the ground behind him as he speared the woman in control of the dragon. Quickly he raised his fist back and drove it into her face, knocking her out. The fire dragon that had been descending rapidly dissipated and disappeared. He didn't have time to celebrate any victory, and the window of the building exploded above him, and he saw a member of Class 1B come diving out. He watched as the boy's speech bubble turned into plop as he fell to the ground. The word fell, and he landed on it all like he fell into water. Sato shook his head and ran over, helping the boy up. "Thanks," Manga said, looking towards the window he had just dived out of. Rat-a-tat-tat formed, and bullets flew up into the building. "Don't worry, they're rubber," he said as the sounds of pain rang out. Sen and Yuga burst from an alley. Sen spun his arms at whatever was chasing them. The sound of metal colliding with something and a scream of pain was heard. Yuga stepped to the side of Sen and let his naval laser rip down the same alley. "Prenka," he shouted. The two boys high-fived before they put their hands on their knees, drawing a deep breath. Sen and Manga ran over to them. With a cautious glance down the hall, they saw a giant of a man lying on his back, unconscious against the wall, a burn mark on his forehead, and two dumpsters crushed at his legs. "So, how is everyone doing?" Manga asked sarcastically. "You know, pretty good. A little sad that I forgot the things to make s'mores though," Sato asked, earning a laugh from everyone. A little way away, a building exploded out, and out stepped a woman 18 feet tall. Her hair made of fire burst forth. "Enough games, time to die. Baby heroes. Run," Sen yelled as the boys bolted down another alley. Forest zone. Ibara vines whipped out and yanked Mina back as her acid splashed onto the moss villain's face. Mina spun and fired behind Ibara as a villain with deer antlers came charging, forcing him to change course. "Thank you for the save," Ibara called out, her vines forming a wall as arrows flew deeper into the forest. "Same to you. We need to get moving. They are surrounding us, and our luck will run out," Mina called back. Suddenly crashing through the trees into the clearing with them came Mizo, two of his hand digging into the eye sockets of a man with a bear quirk and the other four fighting desperately to keep the bear's jaws from closing on his stomach. Ibara spun to assist her vines, grabbing the thing's arm and wrenching them back with a sickening crack. Mina flung acid at the deer man and Mr. Moss attempting to keep them back. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw another volley of arrows come raining down. "Look out," she screamed. She shut her eyes as none of them were in a position to dodge. "I got you guys." A voice rang out from the south as Kosai burst out, letting out a massive breath that knocked the arrows off course. The four stood back to back as the villains regained their footing. "Together," Ibara said fiercely. The other three nodded. Underground, Ciro's tape flew out. Wrapping around the mole man, he tugged with all he could, slamming the beast face down, recklessly. He charged forward, his foot connected with the villain's thick skull, knocking him out. Ciro stumbled back, blood pouring from a bite mark on his shoulder. F, he muttered. He tenderly reached to his elbow and pulled off a piece of tape to slap over the wound to staunch the bleeding. As he stumbled out of the large cave back into a tunnel, he stuck his hand against the wall to guide him. The sounds of a battle began to fill his ears as he entered a large chamber. With her back against the wall, Kanoko threw her arms sweepingly toward her opponents. They appeared to be twins with a spider quirk, huge mandibles protruding from their mouths, dripping with salvia, and spider talons growing out of their backs. They chuckled as they approached the girl. Suddenly they began to scream as the spore grew into a strange mushroom, and green gas leaked. Kanoko let out a battle cry and ran, delivering a layout dropkick on one of the twins. The other, still screaming Talon, lashed out. Ciro fired his tape, capturing the limb and yanking back with all his might. A sickening crack was heard as the stem snapped. Shihai appeared in the darkness above the beast and dropped down, driving his feet into the thing's back and face into the ground. He and Kanoko scrambled free as Ciro ran over, firing more tape to secure them to the floor. The three looked at each other. A terrible roar was heard from the west tunnel before any of them could speak. Having emerged from the south, the only other exit was east. They broke off in a run. The front door. Achako raced towards the down 13, her quirk being used against her by the mist villain. The villain chuckled menacingly, but it was suddenly jerked to the side before it could act. "Stay away from them, you monster," Ryuko yelled. "There is a body under there." Juzo, stick him. Pony, aim for the neck brace. Ida, kick that son of a beach into next week. Yosu, I need a bat or something, Nyaranjiki called out. Class 1B immediately sprang into action, putting their faith in their classmate. Juzo ran, sliding to a stop in front of the mist villain. His hands hit the floor, and the villain began to sink. Pony's horns fired, striking true, and a scream of pain told them they were on the right path. Ida sprang forward and kicked the villain on the left side, sending him toppling. Its hand shoots out to stop it and becomes trapped in the floor like its feet. Yostas handed over a makeshift bat to Nyaranjiki. "Hiroraka, negate me," he yelled as he ran by her. She reached out, managing to slap his arm. He leaped into the air, raising the pipe above his head. "Release it," he yelled. Achako pressed her fingertips together, allowing gravity to reassert itself, and he came crashing down with a thunderous overhead swing. A terrible clang was heard as it collided with the mist villain's neck brace, driving the villain to the ground. Juzo release. Yosu welled this bastard, Nirn yelled, leaping off the mist villain. Juzo released his, softening the ground, hardening around the villain as Yosu ran forward and welded the neck brace to the floor. Ida and Pony kicked that bastard till he stops moving. He yelled. He ran over to Ochako, pulling some bandages from a pouch. Use this to stop the bleeding. That was amazing, Ochako said, applying the bandages. Thanks. Now we need to figure a way out past those doors. I can get past them, Juzo said. Softening should work so we can pry them open, and then Speedy can get help. While I would loathe to leave my companions behind, I see the logic in sending me, Tenya said. Why are we talking about it? Let's do this, Yosu yelled as they raced to the doors. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.